Hello everyone, welcome back. This is a story from her silent revenge, and it has taken a turn you absolutely didn't expect. Let's begin.
I collapsed in the emergency room after saving 47 animals from a wildfire. When I opened my eyes, I realized I had been left behind. My family had gone to my sister's bachelorette party, as if I had never nearly died. The front desk handed me the visitor log. Only one name appeared repeated for 7 straight nights. 7 days later, my sister went pale when I quietly said that name out loud. And when the secret buried for 34 years began to unravel, I uncovered the truth and watched my entire family fall apart. I'm so grateful you're here. Before we dive in, drop a comment and let me know, where did you find this story? YouTube recommendations, a friend's share. I'd love to know how you discovered us. Oh, and a quick heads up, this story blends some fictional elements for storytelling and life lessons. Any similarities to actual people or places? Pure coincidence. But the message, that's what matters, and it's for you. My name is Dr. Nina Harlow. I'm 34 years old. 7 days ago, I collapsed in the ER after saving 47 animals from a wildfire in Pisgah National Forest. When I woke up, my family was in Charleston celebrating my sister Taylor's bachelorette party. But a stranger with eyes like mine, one blue, one green, sat outside my ICU door every single night. The visitor log revealed a secret my mother Diane buried for 34 years. And Taylor, she'd been poisoning me. November 17th, 2024 started like any other Sunday shift at Blue Ridge Veterinary Hospital in Asheville. I'd been on duty for 14 hours when the call came through: wildfire, 200 acres, evacuation orders, pets abandoned. Jenna Briggs, my best friend and the only other vet working that day, grabbed the clinic keys without hesitation. "We're going," she said, and I didn't argue. That's what we did. We saved animals. It's what I'd done for 7 years, working 80-hour weeks while sending every spare dollar home to my family. But I didn't know then that this rescue would be my last for a long time. The smoke hit us before we even reached the forest, thick, acrid, coating my throat. By the time Jenna parked our white clinic van on the service road, visibility had dropped to 20 feet, and the temperature gauge read 95 degrees. We worked in pairs, moving through the evacuation zone like we'd done this 100 times before. The first house, 2 dogs locked in a laundry room, frantic and dehydrated. The second, a calico cat in a carrier in the garage, yowling. The third, rabbits in hutches behind a farmhouse, 9 of them, their eyes wide with terror. My head started aching around the 4th house, a dull throb at my left temple that I blamed on dehydration and the smoke. My Apple Watch buzzed. Heart rate 110 beats per minute. I ignored it. There were still animals to save. By 11 p.m., we'd rescued 47 animals, 12 dogs, 18 cats, 9 rabbits, 5 birds, 2 goats, and 1 miniature horse who'd been locked in a barn, terrified and kicking at the stall door. The horse was the last one. I led her out by the halter, my hands shaking, my vision swimming. The pain in my head had escalated to a 9 out of 10. I grabbed the side of the van to steady myself, and Jenna's hand was suddenly on my arm. "Nina, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice sharp with concern. "Just tired," I lied, climbing into the passenger seat. But I knew, deep down, I knew something was very wrong. The pain hit like a sledgehammer at 11:35 p.m. We were driving back to the clinic, the van packed with crates and frightened animals, when the agony exploded, left temple radiating down my neck, so sharp I couldn't breathe. "Pull over," I gasped. Jenna swerved onto the shoulder, and I stumbled out, the cool night air hitting my face, but doing nothing to help. My right side felt heavy, numb. When I tried to tell Jenna I just needed water, the words came out slurred wrong. She grabbed my shoulders, her face close to mine. "Your pupils," she said, her voice rising. "They're uneven. We're going to Mission Hospital right now." I wanted to argue I was 34 years old, a veterinarian. I saved lives. I didn't have strokes, but I couldn't argue because my tongue felt thick and the right side of my face was numb, and somewhere in my clinical brain, the part that understood anatomy and physiology. I knew Jenna was right. I walked into the Mission Hospital ER at 11:43 p.m. under my own power, Jenna gripping my left arm because my right side had stopped working. The triage nurse took one look at me and grabbed a wheelchair. Within 15 minutes, I was in a CT scanner, the machine humming around me, the table cold beneath my back. Then Dr. Marcus Shaw was standing over me, 46, graying at the temple's wire-rimmed glasses. I'd seen him before at the clinic with his diabetic schnauzer. "Dr. Harlow," he said, and I hated how gentle his voice was. "You've had a hemorrhagic stroke. Left hemisphere 3-centimeter bleed. Your blood pressure is 220 over 130. We need to operate within 6 hours or your survival window drops to 40% over the next 48 hours. I tried to process that. Brain bleed, surgery, 40% survival. I tried to speak. My family... Jenna was already dialing, her hands shaking. I watched her call my mother once, twice, 3 times. Voicemail. She tried Taylor. Voicemail. 7 calls. 7 unanswered calls. The last thing I remember before surgery was Jenna's voice breaking. "Where the hell are they?" Then there was nothing. 3 hours and 45 minutes of nothing. Craniotomy. Evacuation of the hematoma. Dr. Shaw and a team I'd never meet while conscious. What I remember instead is the dream. Or maybe it wasn't a dream. Maybe it was the space between alive and not alive, where your brain shows you what matters. I dreamed of the calico cat, her claws digging into my arm, her terrified green eyes. And I thought she's going to be okay. Someone will take care of her. And then I thought, who's going to take care of me? When the hospital called my mother at 1 a.m., I learned this later from Jenna. She answered on the 4th ring. "Mrs. Harlow, this is Mission Hospital. Your daughter has had a stroke. She's in surgery." And my mother said, "We'll come tomorrow. We're in Charleston." Not is she okay. Not we're on our way. Tomorrow. Because my sister's bachelorette party was more important than my life. I didn't wake up for 7 days. 7 days in a medically induced coma in ICU room 318, while my brain tried to rewire itself. 7 days where my family visited once for 33 minutes and then left. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand why my family wasn't there, you need to know how I became their ATM, how I spent 7 years from age 27 to 34, sending $75,400 home every dollar I could spare. To understand the 34-year secret, you need to know why I always felt different. Why my eyes, one blue, one green, never matched anyone in my family. Why David raised me for 34 years, but never quite looked at me the way he looked at Taylor. And to understand why a stranger with eyes like mine sat outside my ICU door for 7 nights, you need to hear his story. But first, you need to know about the money. Because in my family, love was measured in dollars, and I was 34 years old before I realized I'd been paying for something I never owed. It started with a text message, September 2017. I was 27 years old, 2 months into my first real job as a veterinarian at Blue Ridge Veterinary Hospital, still figuring out how to survive on $68,000 a year after taxes and student loan payments. The text came from Taylor, my sister, then 26, and in her 2nd year of vet tech school. "Nina, I need $1,200 for tuition. Mom can't help. Dad's firm is struggling after the 2016 recession." I remember staring at my phone in the break room between appointments, doing the math in my head. I'd just signed a lease on a studio apartment in West Asheville for $100 a month. My student loans were $47,000 payments due monthly. But Taylor was my sister. Family helped family. That's what I'd been taught my whole life. So I opened Venmo and sent $1,200. It was supposed to be a one-time thing. It wasn't. By the end of 2017, I'd sent Taylor $14,500. Rent help, groceries, car insurance, gas money. Every request came with an explanation. Dad's accounting firm had lost 3 major clients during the 2016 to 2017 recession. The family was stretched thin. Taylor was working part-time at Starbucks, making $12 an hour, but it wasn't enough. And I believed it. I believed my family needed me. So I sent the money month after month, watching my savings account hover just above zero, while Taylor's Instagram filled with photos of brunches and shopping trips and weekend getaways with friends. The escalation began in 2018. Taylor failed the North Carolina Veterinary Technician Licensing Exam in March, her first attempt at age 27. When my mother called me crying, asking for $2,000 for a retake prep course, I hesitated. I was 28 years old, working 60-hour weeks, barely scraping by. "Mom, I'm barely making ends meet," I said. Her response was immediate. "She's your sister. Family helps family. Your father's firm is barely staying afloat. We can't help her financially right now." The guilt hit like a physical weight. Dad's firm was struggling. Mom didn't work. She'd been a stay-at-home wife for 25 years. Taylor was devastated, depressed, needed support. What kind of sister would I be if I said no? So I sent the $2,000. By the end of 2018, I'd sent $8,400 total. In 2019, Taylor failed the exam again, her second attempt. This time, she asked for $1,500 for therapy. I tried to push back. "Taylor, I can't keep doing this. I've sent you almost $25,000 in 2 years." She cried on the phone. "You make $72,000 a year now. I make $12 an hour. Dad's firm can't help. They're barely surviving." I sent $1,000 as a compromise. Total for 2019, $6,200. Then came 2020 and 2021, and with it, what I thought was hope. My mother was diagnosed with a thyroid issue, or so she claimed, and asked for $5,500 for medical bills. I borrowed from my 401k to send it. I was 30 years old and I'd depleted my retirement savings for my family, but I told myself it was worth it. In 2021, Taylor announced her engagement to Evan Mitchell, a lawyer, 31 years old, clean-cut and successful. I was genuinely happy. Finally, I thought Taylor won't need my help anymore. Finally, I can save money for myself. I sent $14,500 that year for various requests. Taylor swore they were the last ones before Evan took over supporting her. I believed her because I wanted to believe her. By 2022 and 2023, the engagement had become a money pit. September 2023. Taylor was 32. I was 33. She asked for $2,800 for an engagement party. "Evan's family expects it," she said. "You're my maid of honor. This is normal." I sent the money thinking it was the last big expense. Then came November 2023, $4,200 for a venue deposit in Charleston for a June 2024 wedding. I checked my savings account. I had $8,130 left after 7 years of working as a veterinarian. I hesitated. "Can Evan help?" I asked. "He's a lawyer." Taylor's response came through text, all caps. "His family isn't helping. You're my sister. This is my one wedding. Are you really that selfish?" My mother chimed in on the group text. "Nina, please, just this once." I wired $4,200 to an LLC called Charleston Events. I didn't question it. I should have. By the end of 2023, I'd sent $18,600 that year alone. Total since 2017, $64,500. The final straw came in 2024. I was 34 years old, exhausted, working 80-hour weeks at the clinic while my savings dwindled to nothing. In October, Taylor failed her vet tech exam for the third time. She was 33, now still not certified after 11 years of trying. She spiraled. Then came September, $3,900 for a bachelorette trip to Charleston to the sanctuary at Kiowa Island Resort. I looked at my bank account. $8,130 total. If I sent the money, I'd have $4,230 left. No emergency fund, no savings, nothing. I texted Taylor, "I can't afford this. I have $8,000 left after 7 years of working." Her response, "You're my sister. This is my one bachelorette party. Are you really that selfish?" My mother joined in. "Nina, please, just this once." I sent the $3,900 on November 1st. 3 weeks later, I collapsed with a stroke. When I finally saw the full accounting, thanks to Jenna, who pulled my bank statements while I was in the ICU, the numbers were devastating. $2,017, $14,500. 2018, $8,400. 2019, $6,200. 2020, $5,500. 2021, $14,500. 2022 to 2023, $18,600. 2024, $10,900. Total over 7 years, from age 27 to 34, $75,400. Nearly 16% of my take-home pay every single year gone, sent home to a sister who faked gratitude and a mother who weaponized guilt. But money wasn't the only thing they took from me. Lying in that hospital bed staring at those numbers, I realized something else. For 34 years, I'd felt different, out of place, like I didn't quite belong in my own family. My eyes, one blue, one green, never matched anyone else's. My father, David, who raised me, never looked at me the way he looked at Taylor. And I'd spent my entire life trying to earn a love I'd never quite received, paying for it in dollars and exhaustion and self-sacrifice. The money was just the surface. Beneath it was a deeper question, one I'd been too afraid to ask. Why did I always feel like I owed them something I could never repay? The answer I would learn had been hidden for 34 years, and it started with my eyes. The first time someone called my eyes weird, I was 4 years old. It was 1994, my first week of preschool in Asheville, and the teacher, a kind woman named Mrs. Patterson, was doing circle time introductions. When she got to me, she smiled and said, "Class Nina has something special. Look at her eyes. One is blue like the sky and one is green like the grass. Isn't that beautiful?" The other kids stared. One boy, Tyler, pointed and said, "That's weird." Another girl, Madison, scooted away from me. I didn't understand why having different colored eyes made me weird, but I understood that I was different. That night, I asked my mother why my eyes didn't match. Diane knelt down, brushed my hair back, and said, "You're special, honey. It's called heterochromia. It's rare, only 1 in 500 people have it." I asked if Daddy had it. She hesitated just for a second before saying, "No, but it can skip generations." I believed her. I was 4. Why wouldn't I? By the time I was 9, I'd started noticing other differences. It was 1999, a Sunday afternoon, and I was looking through our family photo albums while Taylor watched cartoons in the living room. In every picture, Taylor looked exactly like our mother, blonde hair, hazel eyes, fair skin that burned in the summer sun. David, my father, had brown hair and brown eyes, pale skin that never tanned. And then there was me. Dark auburn hair, almost chestnut, olive skin that turned golden in the sun. And my eyes, one blue, one green, a genetic quirk that appeared in none of the family photos going back 3 generations on either side. I remember asking David about it later that week. "Why don't I look like you?" He was reading the newspaper, barely glanced up. "You have your grandmother's coloring," he said, but I'd seen pictures of both grandmothers. Neither had auburn hair. Neither had heterochromia. When I pressed, he folded the newspaper and said, "Nina, that's enough questions." I learned then that some questions weren't meant to be asked. Taylor used the ammunition when she was 10 and I was 13. We were fighting over something trivial. I'd borrowed her hairbrush without asking, and she screamed at me in the hallway. "You're not even Dad's real daughter, Mom told me." I felt the words like a punch. I ran to my mother, tears streaming, and demanded to know if it was true. Diane's face went white. She grabbed Taylor by the arm, furious. "That's a lie. Go to your room right now." Then she turned to me, her voice softer. "Ignore her, Nina. You're David's daughter. She's just jealous because you're smarter than her." But Taylor's words stuck, because deep down beneath the reassurances and explanations, I'd always wondered, why did I look so different? Why did David barely look at me when he looked at Taylor with such obvious affection? Why did I feel like I was always trying to earn something Taylor got for free? The distance between David and me became impossible to ignore as I grew older. From 14 to 34, a 20-year span, I cataloged every instance of his emotional absence. He went to every one of Taylor's school plays, 8 in total, but missed all 4 of mine because he had to work late. He paid $200 a month for Taylor's dance classes for 6 years, but told me vet camp was too expensive that I'd have to save up the $800 myself. He hugged Taylor freely, pulled her onto his lap when she was sad, ruffled her hair, and called her Pumpkin. When he hugged me, it was stiff, formal, like he was fulfilling an obligation rather than expressing love. I told myself it was because I reminded him of someone, some painful memory he couldn't face. I thought maybe I looked like a relative who died or an ex-girlfriend he'd loved before my mother. I never imagined the truth that I reminded him of a man he didn't know existed a biological father whose eyes looked into his every time he glanced at me. By the time I turned 34, I'd accepted that David and I would never be close. I thought it was because I reminded him of someone. I didn't know it was because I wasn't his. My mother overcompensated. From the time I was 10, Diane praised me constantly. "You're so smart, Nina. So talented, so responsible." But the praise felt hollow because it always came with a comparison. "You need to help Taylor. She's not as strong as you." By 16, I was expected to act like an adult while Taylor was still treated like a child. When I went to college at 18, my mother called me twice a week asking for advice about Taylor, about money, about David. I became the family therapist, the problem solver, the emotional support system. Taylor got to be the baby. I got to be the workhorse. And looking back now, lying in an ICU bed at 34 with half my brain hemorrhaged and my family nowhere to be found, I understood. My mother's overcompensation wasn't love. It was guilt. On the third night of my coma, November 20th, 2024, around 2 a.m, Rita Osborne, the night shift ICU nurse, made a discovery that would change everything. She was 48, had worked at Mission Hospital for 16 years, and had seen enough family dysfunction to recognize it when she saw it. She'd watched my family visit, once stay 33 minutes, and leave for a bachelorette party in Charleston. She'd watched Jenna come every day for hours. And she'd watched a man in his 60s sit outside my ICU door every single night, reading aloud from a worn paperback, bringing a therapy dog, refusing to leave until the early morning hours. On the third night, curiosity got the better of her. She checked the visitor log. Samuel Fletcher. The same name 3 nights in a row. She Googled him on her phone during a lull in her rounds. Samuel Fletcher, retired veterinarian, Asheville Humane Society. And then she found his photo, a man with graying hair and wire-rimmed glasses, and eyes that made her breath catch. One blue, one green. The same pattern as mine. Heterochromia. 1 in 500 people. Rita stood outside my room, looking through the glass door at my unconscious face, then back at her phone screen, then at the man sitting in the hallway with his golden retriever. She didn't tell my mother. She didn't tell anyone, but she made a note in my chart, a single line that would later become evidence. P has heterochromia, visitor S. Fletcher has matching heterochromia, suggest inquiry. I didn't know any of this yet. I was still unconscious, trapped in a medically induced coma while my brain tried to heal. But even in that darkness, some part of me was processing, dreaming, remembering. I dreamed of Taylor's smoothies, the ones she'd brought me every morning for 3 weeks before my collapse. Green, thick, bitter. I told her they tasted wrong. She'd said it was the spinach. Drink it anyway, she'd said. It's good for you. In the dream, I poured the smoothie down the sink. I looked at my hands, shaking unstable. And I heard Taylor's voice, syrupy sweet. "You're so tired, Nina. You work too hard. Let me take care of you." When I woke up, still days away, I'd remember that dream. I'd remember the taste of those smoothies. And I'd realize that my 33-year-old sister had been poisoning her 34-year-old sister for 3 weeks. But first I had to survive. And first I had to learn who Samuel Fletcher was and why a stranger with my eyes had been waiting 34 years to meet me. On the 4th day of my coma, Jenna sat beside my hospital bed and whispered, "I should have said something about those damn smoothies." She was talking about the green drinks my sister Taylor had brought me every morning for 3 weeks before I collapsed. At the time, I thought she was being a good sister. I was 34 years old enough to know better. It started October 28th, 2024, a Monday morning at 7:15. I was in my West Asheville apartment getting ready for an early shift at the clinic when Taylor showed up unannounced. That alone should have been a red flag. My 33-year-old sister rarely visited me, and when she did, it was usually to ask for money. But that morning she arrived with a large insulated tumbler, smiling, holding it out like a gift. "I made you a wellness smoothie," she said. "Spinach, banana, almond butter, organic protein powder. You look exhausted, Nina. Someone has to take care of you." I was touched, genuinely touched. For 7 years, I'd been sending Taylor money, working 80-hour weeks while she floated from one failed vet tech exam to another, from one fake crisis to another. And now here she was, doing something kind for me. "You made this for me?" I asked, taking the tumbler. It was cold, heavy, the contents thick and dark green. "You work yourself to death," Taylor said, her voice soft, concerned. 80 hours a week. You need better nutrition." I unscrewed the lid and took a sip. It was bitter, sharply, unexpectedly bitter, with a chalky texture that coated my tongue. I must have made a face because Taylor quickly added, "It's the spinach. Organic tastes different. But it's so good for you. Drink the whole thing. That protein powder cost $40. So I drank it. All of it. Within 30 minutes, I felt a warm rush through my body, my heart beating faster, my hands slightly unsteady. I blamed it on the coffee I'd had earlier. I blamed it on lack of sleep. I blamed it on everything except the truth. The pattern established itself quickly. October 29th. Taylor showed up at 7 a.m. October 30th, 7:15. October 31st, 7 a.m. again. Always the same smoothie green, thick bitter. Always the same insistence. "Drink all of it, Nina. Don't waste it." And I did, because she was my sister, because she said she cared, because after 34 years of feeling like I didn't quite belong in my family, someone was finally taking care of me. By November, third day 6, my hands started shaking during surgery. I was suturing a beagle's laceration, and the needle slipped my fingers, trembling. I blamed dehydration. By November 5th, day 8, the headaches started. A dull throb at my left temple, persistent, nagging a 5 out of 10 on the pain scale. By November 8th, day 11, my Apple Watch was buzzing constantly. Heart rate 120 beats per minute. Resting. I deleted the notification. By November 10th, day 13, I was sleeping 3 hours a night, lying awake with my heart racing, my mind spinning, my body wired and exhausted at the same time. When I mentioned it to Taylor the next morning, her response was immediate. "That's detox symptoms," she said, handing me another smoothie. "Your body is adjusting. It means it's working. Keep drinking them." Jenna noticed before I did. November 12th, midday at the clinic, I dropped a syringe during a routine vaccination. My hands were shaking so badly I couldn't hold it steady. Jenna grabbed my wrist, her eyes sharp with concern. "Have you checked your blood pressure?" she asked. "I'm fine," I said, pulling away. "Just tired." But I wasn't fine, and Jenna knew it. When Taylor showed up at 12:30 with another smoothie, "You forgot to drink this morning, so I brought you a fresh one." Jenna watched me drink it with an expression I couldn't quite read. Later in the break room, she confronted me. "Why is Taylor suddenly so interested in your health?" she asked. "She barely called you for years, and now she's bringing you daily smoothies. Don't you think that's weird?" I got defensive. I told her Taylor was being nice, that she was trying to help, that Jenna was always suspicious of everyone. Jenna backed off, but I saw the doubt in her eyes. I should have listened to her. I didn't. By November 15th, 2 days before I collapsed, my symptoms were impossible to ignore. The headache had escalated to a 7 out of 10. I checked my blood pressure at the clinic, 160/100, dangerously high. My right hand trembled constantly. Dr. Morrison, my 58-year-old boss who'd worked in veterinary medicine for 30 years, pulled me aside. "Take a day off," he said. "You're 34, not 24. You need rest." I refused. The wildfire evacuation was coming. We needed all hands on deck. That evening, Taylor texted me, "Drink your smoothie before bed tonight. Double dose for energy tomorrow." I should have questioned it. I should have asked why I needed a double dose, why my sister, who'd never cared about my health, was suddenly so invested. But I didn't. I drank 2 servings, and that night I didn't sleep at all. My heart rate hit 115 beats per minute. I sweated through my sheets. My mind raced with anxiety I couldn't name. The last smoothie came on November 17th, 7 a.m., the morning I would collapse. Taylor arrived with her usual bright smile, the usual insulated tumbler. "Last one before your big day," she said. "Wildfire rescue, you'll need all the energy you can get." This one was different. More bitter than usual, almost medicinal. "Did you change the recipe?" I asked. "Just added extra greens," Taylor said quickly. "Drink up." I drank half of it before the taste became unbearable. When Taylor wasn't looking, I poured the rest down the sink. Later, lying in the ICU with half my brain hemorrhaged, I would think I should have poured all of it out, every single one, for 3 weeks. On the 4th day of my coma, while I lay unconscious in ICU room 318, Jenna sat beside me crying. "I knew something was wrong with those smoothies," she told the nurse. "But I didn't push. She's 34. I thought she knew what she was doing." That's when Rita Osborne, the night shift nurse who'd been watching over me, brought in the news. Her toxicology results came back abnormal, Rita said, her voice careful, measured. High levels of stimulants, ephedrine and caffeine, toxic levels. Jenna's face went white. "She doesn't take supplements," Jenna said. "She's a veterinarian. She knows better." Rita met her eyes. "Then where did it come from?" And Jenna remembered. The smoothies. 3 weeks of daily smoothies from a 33-year-old sister who'd never cared before. My body at 34 was fighting a battle I couldn't see. And my family was about to arrive. 7 missed calls the night I collapsed, 7 voicemails they never returned. 33 minutes they would spend at my bedside before leaving for a bachelorette party in Charleston. 34 years of being their daughter measured in minutes and dollars and poisoned smoothies. I didn't know it yet, but I was about to learn exactly how much I was worth to them. The first thing I remember after the anesthesia wore off wasn't pain, it was the silence. Not the mechanical hum of the ventilator or the rhythmic beep of the heart monitor, but the absence of voices I had spent 34 years learning to recognize. The voices that should have been there in room 318 of Mission Hospital's ICU 24 hours after a 3-centimeter bleed nearly killed me. Instead, there was only Jenna sitting in the orange vinyl chair beside my bed, her eyes red-rimmed and her notebook open on her lap, cataloging everything the way she always did when something mattered. Later, when the sedation lightened enough for me to process what had happened, she showed me my phone. 7 missed calls, all placed in the 15 minutes between my collapse in the ER and the moment Dr. Shaw opened my skull. 3 to my mother, Diane, 2 to my sister, Taylor, 2 to my stepfather, David. Every single one had gone to voicemail. Every single one had been ignored. Jenna had finally reached my mother at 1 o'clock in the morning, nearly 14 hours after the surgery began. "We're in Charleston." Diane had said, her voice muffled by what Jenna later described as background laughter and clinking glasses. "We'll come tomorrow." Not "is she alive?" Not "what happened?" Just a promise to come tomorrow delivered with the same casual inconvenience she might have used to reschedule a dentist appointment. They arrived at 10 o'clock on the morning of November 18th, 2024, day 1, of what Dr. Shaw had warned would be a 5 to 7 day coma. I was still unconscious, still breathing through a tube, still tethered to machines that beeped and whirred and measured every fragile beat of my damaged heart. Jenna had been there since 6 a.m., sitting vigil the way she had every night since the collapse, filling her notebook with visitor logs and nurse rotations and the small, desperate details that might matter later. When the door to ICU 318 finally opened, my family walked in like tourists entering a museum exhibit they hadn't particularly wanted to see. My mother came first, her bleached blonde hair pulled into a loose bun, her phone already in her hand. She glanced at me, at the ventilator tube taped to my mouth, at the bandages wrapped around my shaved head, at the IV line snaking into both arms, and then she looked away, her thumb scrolling through her phone screen. Twice in the first 5 minutes. Jenna timed it. Taylor followed her green eyes scanning the room with the practiced efficiency of someone calculating Instagram angles. She pulled out her phone, angled it toward the window where the morning light softened the sterile white walls, and took a selfie. She checked the screen, frowned, deleted it, and took another. Then another. She never looked at me. Not once. Jenna wrote that down too. Taylor took 4 selfies deleted. All 4 never looked at patient. David came in last. He was 60 years old, his hair more gray than brown now, his shoulders stooped in a way I didn't remember from before. He stood at the foot of my bed, his hands shoved deep into the pockets of his khaki jacket, and stared at the monitor above my head. Not at me, at the screen, at the numbers that told him I was still alive. His jaw worked like he wanted to say something, but no sound came out. He just stood there silent and still while the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead and the ventilator hissed in the corner. At 10:15, Dr. Shaw entered, his white coat crisp and his expression carefully neutral. "She's stable," he said, addressing my mother because she was the one who had signed the consent forms. "But she's still critical. The next 5 to 7 days will tell us whether the surgery was successful. Right now, she's in a medically induced coma to give her brain time to heal." Diane nodded, her eyes still on her phone. "So she's not dead yet?" she asked, and Jenna's pen stopped mid-word. "No," Dr. Shaw said slowly. "She's not dead, but she needs rest and she needs family support." "What about Charleston?" Taylor interrupted, looking up for the first time. "We have a reservation at Kiowa through the 24th. It's already paid for." David finally spoke, his voice low and rough. "Maybe one of us should stay." Diane turned to him, her expression sharp. "Marcus said she's stable. We'll come back if anything changes." She turned to Jenna, her smile bright and empty. "You can stay with her, can't you? You're off this week, right?" Jenna stared at her, too stunned to respond immediately. Yes, but..." "Perfect." Diane's phone buzzed and she glanced at the screen. "We'll check in every day. If anything changes, you'll call us right." At 10:33, exactly 33 minutes after they had arrived, my family left. David paused at the door, his hand on the frame, and looked back at me one last time. His mouth opened, then closed. Then he turned and walked out, his footsteps echoing down the long, white hallway. Jenna sat back down in the orange chair, her notebook trembling slightly in her hands. She wrote, "Family visit 33 minutes. Diane checked phone 6 times. Taylor took 4 selfies. David said 8 words. None of them touched her." For the next 6 days, while my family posted 94 Instagram stories from Kiowa Island, 32 from the beach, 18 from a yacht, 22 from a nightclub, 12 from brunch, and 10 from the spa, Jenna stayed. She counted the stories. She saved the screenshots. She documented every champagne toast and every sunset selfie, every caption that said, "Living my best life," and "blessed beyond measure," while I lay in room 318 breathing through a machine. But Jenna wasn't the only one who stayed. On the evening of November 18th at 8 o'clock, 10 hours after my family had driven back to their luxury resort, a man appeared outside the glass door of ICU 318. He was 64 years old, his hair silver and his shoulders broad despite his age. He carried a worn paperback copy of All Creatures Great and Small by James Herriot, the pages dog-eared and the cover creased from years of reading. He sat in the chair outside my room, the one meant for visitors who weren't allowed inside during overnight hours, and he read. For 3 hours he sat there. Then he stood, placed his hand flat against the glass, and left. Nurse Rita Osborne, who had worked ICU for 16 years, noted the visit in her log. Samuel Fletcher, November 18th, 2024, 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock, p.m. relation, family, friend. But when Jenna asked her later who he was, Rita only shrugged and said, "He didn't say much, just asked if you were stable. Then he sat down and read." Jenna wrote that down too. At the bottom of the page, in handwriting that wavered with exhaustion and anger, she added, "Your family stayed 33 minutes. Your father didn't say a word, but someone else did." The man with the mismatched eyes, one blue, one green, just like mine, came back the next night, and the night after that, and every night for a week. I didn't know who he was, but I was about to find out. For 7 nights, while my family posted Instagram stories from Charleston, a man I had never met sat outside the glass door of my ICU room. His name was Samuel Fletcher. He was 64 years old. He had eyes like mine, one blue, one green, and he had been waiting 34 years to meet me. He refused to leave. I didn't know any of this until I woke up, but Nurse Rita Osborne, who had worked ICU for 16 years and had seen every kind of vigil imaginable, knew. She watched him every night and she wrote it all down in her log. Later, when I asked her why she had paid such close attention, she said, "Because I could tell he was counting the hours. Not the way most people do, checking his watch, pacing, complaining. He was counting them like they were precious, like he'd already lost too many." The first time Samuel arrived at Mission Hospital after my family left was on the evening of November 19th, 2024, day 2 of my coma. It was 10:30 at night, well past visiting hours, and he walked through the ICU entrance with a worn paperback copy of All Creatures Great and Small, a silver thermos of coffee, and a 14-year-old golden retriever named Willow. Rita stopped him at the door. "Sir, you can't bring a dog in here." Samuel pulled a laminated card from his jacket pocket. "Willow is a certified therapy dog. I have clearance." Rita checked with the night supervisor, who confirmed the registration. She led Samuel to the row of chairs outside room 318, where a glass wall separated the waiting area from the ICU bay. Through the window, he could see me unconscious, intubated, bandaged, but he couldn't come inside. ICU policy allowed only immediate family in the rooms overnight, and Samuel wasn't listed as next of kin. He didn't complain. He sat in the hard plastic chair, Willow curled at his feet, and he opened his book. He read aloud, his voice low and steady, the kind of voice that carried through glass, even when it wasn't supposed to. Rita stood at the nurse's station 20 feet away and watched the EEG monitor above my bed. The brain activity spiked slightly when he read not enough to mean I was waking, but enough to mean I was hearing something. When Samuel reached a passage about a veterinarian saving a dying calf, Rita saw him wipe his eyes. She thought, "This man has been waiting a very long time." Over the next 3 nights, November 20th, 21st, and 22nd, Samuel established a routine. He arrived at 10 o'clock each evening, signed the visitor log, and sat in the same chair outside room 318. Willow would rest her graying muzzle on his knee, and he would read. Sometimes he talked to me through the glass, his hand pressed flat against the window. On the 4th night, Dr. Marcus Shaw, working a late shift, noticed him. "Are you her father?" he asked. Samuel hesitated for only a second. "Yes," he said. It was true technically, biologically. Dr. Shaw nodded. "She's lucky to have you." Samuel's eyes reddened. "I'm the lucky one. I've missed 34 years. I won't miss another day." On the morning of November 22nd, day 5, Linda Marsh, the hospital's billing coordinator, reviewed my account. The numbers were staggering: $89,000 for emergency surgery, $24,000 for 5 days in the ICU, $14,000 for medications and tests. Total $127,000. My insurance through Blue Ridge Animal Hospital covered 80%, leaving a patient balance of $25,400. Linda called my emergency contact, Diane, and explained the situation. "We'll need to discuss payment options." Diane's voice was distracted background noise of laughter and clinking glasses. "I can't afford that. Can it wait?" "We typically require a payment plan within 72 hours, Linda said carefully. The next morning, November 23rd, an anonymous wire transfer arrived. $25,400, exactly the balance owed. The payment came from an entity called the Kendrick Foundation Trust, based in Asheville, North Carolina. Linda tried to trace it, but the foundation was private, its records sealed. She mentioned it to Rita during a shift change. Someone just paid her entire bill, 34 years old, and someone loves her enough to pay $25,000 anonymously. Rita glanced toward room 318, where Samuel sat outside the glass Willow's head in his lap. "I'd bet it's the man with the dog." That night, Rita brought Samuel a cup of coffee during her rounds. "You paid her bill, didn't you?" Samuel didn't confirm or deny. He just said, "She shouldn't have to worry about money when she wakes up. She's worried about money her whole adult life, from 27 to 34, sending home $75,000. Rita blinked. "How do you know that?" "I've been watching from a distance," Samuel said quietly, "for 34 years. "Why?" Rita asked. "Her mother said her father died in 2018. Samuel looked through the glass at me, his expression unreadable. David Harlow raised her. He's her father in every way that matters, but I'm her biological father. Rita's breath caught. Does she know about you? No, Samuel said. Her mother kept the secret for 34 years. You should tell her, Rita said. When she wakes up. Samuel's hand tightened around his coffee cup. I'm afraid she'll hate me for not being there. On the night of November 24th, day 7, Samuel sat in his chair at 11 o'clock, reading the final chapter of All Creatures Great and Small. Willow suddenly stood, pressed her nose against the glass, and whined. What is it, girl? Samuel whispered. Inside the room, my EEG spiked sharply. Rita, monitoring from the station, stood up. Samuel leaned forward, his palm flat against the glass. Come back, Nina, he whispered. There's so much I need to tell you. 34 years of words I couldn't say. At 6:47 on the morning of November 25th, 2024, my eyes opened. Rita rushed in. Dr. Harlow, can you hear me? I blinked, disoriented, the ventilator tube already removed. Where am I? Mission Hospital, Rita said gently. You've been in a coma for 7 days. You're 34 years old. You had a stroke. The first question I asked was, where's my family? Rita hesitated. Then she showed me the visitor log. 7 entries, all the same name, Samuel Fletcher. I don't know anyone named Samuel Fletcher, I said. Rita glanced toward the window where Samuel stood just outside Willow beside him. He says he's your father. He's been here every night for 7 nights, waiting. My world tilted. My father died in 2018. He says he's your biological father, Rita said quietly. He's outside. He's been waiting 34 years for you to wake up. Fear and curiosity warred in my chest. I want to meet him. I didn't know it then. But the man outside the glass was about to tell me the truth about the 34-year secret my mother had buried. And everything I thought I knew about my family was about to shatter. I woke to the sound of machines beeping and fluorescent lights burning my eyes. My first thought, I'm alive. I'm 34 years old, and I'm alive. My second thought, where is everyone? I had been unconscious for 7 days, the same number of years I'd been sending money home. 7 days, 7 years, 34 years of lies. The world came into focus slowly, white ceiling tiles, the hum of monitors, the antiseptic smell that clung to everything in ICU room 318. My throat burned from the ventilator tube they'd pulled hours before I woke. My left arm ached where the IV line fed saline into my veins. My right side felt heavy, unresponsive, like it belonged to someone else. Nurse Rita Osborne appeared at my bedside, her face splitting into a relieved smile. Dr. Harlow, welcome back. You're 34 years old. You had a hemorrhagic stroke. You've been unconscious for 7 days. I tried to sit up, but my body wouldn't obey. Panic flared in my chest. Don't panic, Rita said gently, her hand on my shoulder. Weakness is normal. You've been immobile for a week. Physical therapy will help. Most stroke survivors at 34 recover well. I forced my voice to work each word, scraping against my raw throat. Where's my mother? Where's my sister? Rita hesitated. They visited on day 1, November 18th, from 10 to 10:33 a.m. I processed the words slowly, my brain still foggy. 33 minutes. In 7 days. Rita nodded. They said they had to get back to Charleston for a bachelorette party. The shock hit me first, then anger, then a strange numbness like my body had run out of ways to hurt. Did they call text? Rita handed me my phone from the bedside table. Jenna had brought it on day 2, kept it charged. I scrolled through the call log with my left hand, my right still limp against the hospital blanket. No calls from Diane November 18th through 25th. No calls from Taylor. One text message from my mother sent at 11 a.m. on the 18th. Doctor says you're stable. We'll be back Saturday. Love you. Saturday was November 23rd. They hadn't come back. I laughed, a bitter sound that hurt my throat. 34 years being their daughter. 33 minutes is all I got. At 7:30, Jenna burst through the door, her face streaked with tears. Oh my God, you're back. She wrapped her arms around me, careful of the IV lines and bandages, and I cried into her shoulder. You were here, I whispered. Every day. Jenna said fiercely. 3 to 4 hours. I wasn't going to let you wake up alone. What about my family? Jenna's face hardened. I have screenshots, 94 Instagram stories from Charleston. You'll want to see them. Show me. Jenna pulled up Taylor's Instagram on her phone. 94 stories posted between November 18th and 24th. I scrolled in silence, my face expressionless. Beach photos, yacht selfies, nightclub videos, champagne toasts, not a single mention of me. She posted a dolphin tour while I was dying, I said flatly. I'm 34. She's 33. We're adults. And that's what she chose. At 8 o'clock, Linda Marsh from billing entered with a clipboard. Dr. Harlow, welcome back. I need to discuss your account. I braced myself. How much? $127,000. Insurance covered $101,600. Your portion is $25,400. Diane's voice was distracted background noise of laughter and clinking glasses. I can't afford that. Can it wait? My chest tightened. I only have $4,230 in savings. I sent the rest to my sister. Linda smiled. It's been paid. An anonymous donor on November 23rd. Wire transfer from the Kendrick Foundation Trust. I blinked. I don't know anyone at the Kendrick Foundation. Neither do we, Linda said. It's a private trust, but someone who loves you paid $25,400. Someone who's been waiting a very long time. I turned to Jenna. I wish I could have, Jenna said. I don't have that kind of money. Linda glanced at her notes. There's more. The donor also covered non-formulary medications, another $8,600. You don't owe anything. Why would someone do that? At 8:30, Dr. Marcus Shaw arrived for morning rounds. Nina, you're a miracle. Most stroke patients at 34 with your severity don't wake up this quickly. Who visited me? I asked. Besides Jenna. Dr. Shaw hesitated. Your family came once, but there was a man here every night, Samuel Fletcher. He said he's your father. The world stopped. My father David didn't come at all. He was with my mother in Charleston. Who is Samuel Fletcher? Samuel said he's your biological father, Dr. Shaw said carefully. He's been waiting 34 years to meet you. I couldn't breathe. That's impossible. My mother would have told me. Dr. Shaw handed me the visitor log, 7 entries, all the same name, Samuel Fletcher. November 18th, 11 p.m. to 2:15 a.m. November 19th through 24th, the same pattern. Over 21 hours across 7 nights. Where is he now? I whispered. At 9 o'clock, Rita pointed toward the hallway outside the glass door. Samuel Fletcher sat in the same plastic chair he'd occupied for 7 nights, Willow the golden retriever at his feet. He wore a flannel shirt and jeans, reading glasses perched on his nose, the same worn copy of All Creatures Great and Small open in his lap. I stared at him through the glass. An older man, silver hair, weathered face, and his eyes left eye blue, right eye green, an exact mirror of mine. I couldn't breathe. He has my eyes, the 34-year secret. Jenna nodded. I noticed on day 2, but I didn't want to say anything until you woke up. I watched Samuel through the glass, my mind spinning. Who is he? Why does he have my eyes? Has my mother lied to me for 34 years? Did she hide my real father my entire life? And why didn't David visit? Did he know? I need to talk to him, I said to Rita. But not yet. I needed answers first, and the only way to get them was to do what I did best, research. I picked up my phone, opened Google, typed Samuel Fletcher Veterinarian Asheville. What I found would change everything. My hands shook as I typed his name into Google. Not from the stroke, from fear. Fear that everything I knew about 34 years of my life was a lie. Fear that the man outside the glass knew more about me than I knew about myself. Jenna held my phone steady, my right hand still weak as the search results loaded. Samuel Fletcher Veterinarian Asheville. The top result was a LinkedIn profile. Samuel Fletcher, retired wildlife veterinarian, Asheville Humane Society, 2009 to 2020. I clicked it. The profile photo showed the same man sitting outside my door, silver hair flannel shirt, and eyes that mirrored mine. Left blue, right green. His bio was sparse but revealing. NC State University, DVM, 1984. 40 years in wildlife rehabilitation. Skills listed raptor medicine, orphaned mammal care, heterochromia, iridis genetic. The last one hit me like a second stroke. He'd listed his own genetic condition as a professional skill. The second result was a local news article from 2020. Beloved veterinarian Samuel Fletcher retires after 31 years. The photo showed him releasing a red-tailed hawk, Willow, sitting beside him. I scrolled to the comments. Dozens of people praising his work, calling him a hero. One comment from 2020. Dr. Fletcher saved over 2,000 animals in his career. Asheville is lucky to have had him. I kept searching. An obituary database entry, Fletcher Wildlife Rescue, 1989 to 1997, closed/sold. A Facebook profile, mostly private, with one public photo from 2016, Samuel and a younger Willow on a hiking trail. He's a veterinarian, I whispered to Jenna. Like me. He's 64, and he has my eyes. Jenna typed something into her phone. Search Kendrick Foundation, Asheville. I did. The website loaded slowly, a simple page with a mission statement, supporting future veterinarians in Western North Carolina since 2011. Some scholarship details, $12,000 per year for 4 years, total $48,000. Eligibility, Asheville resident vet school student, minimum 100 hours of volunteer work at animal rescues. Funded by anonymous benefactor. My breath caught. I got that scholarship in 2011. I was 21. It paid half my vet school tuition. Search Kendrick Fletcher, Jenna said. I found a genealogy website. Margaret Kendrick Fletcher, 1931 to 2022, mother of Samuel Fletcher. Kendrick was her maiden name. He'd named the scholarship after his mother, and he'd created it in 2011, the year I started vet school. He funded my education. I said, my voice hollow. When I was 21, 34 minus 21, 13 years ago. Then the memory hit me. Summer 2010. Asheville Humane Society. I was 20 years old, volunteering between college semesters. There was a visiting vet, older kind with graying hair and mismatched eyes. He called himself Dr. Rob. The flashback came in fragments. Dr. Rob teaching me to tube feed a baby squirrel, his hands guiding mine, patient and gentle. You've got a gift, kid. You're only 20, but you handle animals like you've been doing this for 30 years. You should be a vet. I can't afford vet school, I'd said. There are scholarships, he'd replied. Don't give up. Another memory. Dr. Rob crouching beside me as I bandaged a fox's broken leg. He studied my face, my eyes. Heterochromia's special, he'd said. My father had it too. It's genetic. I'd worked with him for 3 months, June through August 2010. Then he'd left suddenly, something about a family emergency. I never saw him again, until now. Jenna, I said slowly. In 2010, there was a vet at the Humane Society. He called himself Dr. Rob. He had my eyes. Jenna stared at me. He was watching you, even then. At 11 o'clock, Jenna called Dr. Morrison, my boss at Blue Ridge Animal Hospital. Dr. Morrison, when Nina was hired in 2017, who recommended her, I heard Morrison's voice through the speaker. Let me check her file. Here. Recommendation letter from Dr. Samuel Fletcher, former director of Asheville Humane Society. Glowing review. Said Nina was the most talented young vet he'd ever seen, 27, but wise beyond her years. Did you know him personally? No, but his reputation was legendary. 30 years in wildlife rehab. I trusted his word. Jenna hung up. He helped you get this job in 2017. You were 27. He'd been watching you for 7 years by then. I did the math. 2010 first meeting, I was 20. 2011 scholarship created, I was 21. 2017 recommendation letter, I was 27. 2024 hospital bill paid, I was 34. 14 years of silent help. 14 years of watching from the shadows. At 11:30, Rita brought me a mirror. I studied my eyes, left blue like sky, right green like moss. I turned toward the glass door. Samuel sat in his chair reading, left blue, right green. The exact same pattern. Heterochromia is genetic, I said to Jenna. 1 in 500 people. I'm 34. He's 64, 30 years apart. What are the odds? Jenna asked. The two unrelated people in Asheville have the exact same eye pattern. I pulled up a medical journal on my phone. Heterochromia iridis can be inherited in an autosomal dominant pattern. If one parent has it, children have a 50% chance of inheriting. I looked up at Samuel through the glass. Statistically, nearly impossible that we're not related. The truth settled over me like a weight. He's my father, biologically. The 34-year secret. At noon, I made my decision. Rita, I want to talk to him, now. Rita hesitated. Are you sure you just woke up 3 hours ago? I've waited 34 years for answers. I don't want to wait another minute. Rita turned my bed to face the glass door. Samuel looked up from his book and saw my eyes open. Our gazes met blue-green mirrors 30 years apart. Samuel stood slowly, tears streaming down his face. I nodded. Rita opened the door. Samuel stepped into ICU room 318 for the first time. Willow followed, lying down beside my bed. Samuel stopped 3 feet away, not daring to come closer. I'm so sorry, he said, his voice breaking. I should have told you sooner, 34 years sooner. Tell me now, I said, everything. Why did you wait 34 years? But before Samuel could speak, Jenna's phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Shaw. Toxicology results, we need to talk. Samuel was about to explain the 34-year secret, but Jenna interrupted. She'd been scrolling through Taylor's Instagram while I talked to Samuel, and she'd found something. Jenna's face went pale. Nina, when did Taylor and Evan break up? You're 34, you should have noticed this. I hadn't noticed, because I'd been too busy working 80-hour weeks and sending money home. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Jenna opened Taylor's Instagram on the hospital iPad. She pulled up the timeline, her finger sliding across the screen in silence. Then she stopped. Look, Jenna said. June 15th, engagement announcement. 47 photos. Evan's in every shot. Ring close-up. Taylor's 33, Evan's 31, and they look happy. I remembered that day. Taylor had called me crying with joy. I'd sent her $200 for champagne. Jenna kept scrolling. June 16th through July 1st. Couple photos every day, 22 posts. Evan tagged in all of them. She paused. July 1st, last photo with Evan. Beach sunset. Caption, my forever. Okay, I said slowly. So, July 2nd through November. Jenna said. 4 months. No photos with Evan. Not one. I stared at the screen. Taylor's feed from July to November was all solo selfies, girlfriends, family. No Evan. Jenna clicked over to Evan's Instagram. Look at his account. July 3rd. Photo with another woman. Caption, fresh start. July 15th. Relationship status single and enjoying it. My heart sank. Oh my God! They broke up July 1st, Jenna said. 2 months before the engagement party you paid for. I tried to process it. Maybe they just stopped posting couple photos. Jenna shook her head. Let me check Venmo. She opened my phone. I'd given her my passwords when I woke up and pulled up my Venmo history. September 14th, 2024. $2,800 sent to Taylor. Memo, engagement party. So proud. The party was September 15th, Jenna said. 2.5 months after Evan dumped her. So the engagement party was fake. Jenna Googled Taylor-Evan engagement party, Asheville, September 2024. She found a Facebook event. Public. Taylor and Evan's engagement celebration, September 15th, 7 p.m., Mountain View event space. Photos posted by Taylor's friends showed 40 guests champagne cake. No Evan. One comment stood out. Where's the groom? Taylor's reply, emergency at the office. I felt sick. She threw a fake engagement party and I paid for it. At 3 o'clock, Jenna moved to the next piece. November 2nd, you sent her another payment, $4,200. Memo venue deposit for June wedding. Remember that? I did. Taylor had texted me, venue needs a deposit by Friday or we lose the date. I'd wired the money the same day. Let me call some venues, Jenna said. She Googled Charleston wedding venues and started dialing. First call, the Cedar Room. Hi, I'm verifying a deposit for Taylor Harlow. June 2025 wedding. The voice on speaker. We have no reservation under that name. Jenna called 5 more Charleston venues. Same answer every time. No reservation. Where did my money go? I whispered. Jenna searched Charleston Events LLC, North Carolina. A public record popped up on the NC Secretary of State website. Charleston Events LLC, registered October 1st, 2024. Registered agent Taylor M. Harlow, age 33. She registered a fake company, Jenna said. 1 month before you sent the deposit, you wired $4,200 to your sister's shell company. At 3:30, Jenna found Evan Mitchell's law office number online. She dialed, put it on speaker. Mr. Mitchell, I'm calling about Taylor Harlow. Evan's voice came through confused. Taylor, I haven't spoken to her since July. I'm 31. I don't have time for drama. She told her family you're getting married in June 2025. Silence. Then, what no? We broke up July 1st. She was financially unstable, kept asking me for money. I ended it. Did you know she threw an engagement party in September? Told everyone you had a work emergency. What? Evan sounded furious. No, I wasn't there. I'm sorry her family got dragged into this. Her sister Nina, she's the one who always pays for everything, right? I spoke up. I'm Nina. I paid $2,800 for that party. Evan's voice dropped. I'm sorry, Taylor. She has issues. The call ended. At 4 o'clock, Jenna pulled up a spreadsheet on the iPad. She typed quickly, then turned it toward me. Taylor's fake wedding fraud. Engagement party, September 15th, $2,800. Fake event. No. Evan venue deposit. November 2nd, $4,200. Shell company. LLC. No real venue. Bachelorette trip. November 18th to 24th. $3,900. Real trip. No real wedding, total $10,900. I stared at the numbers. I'm 34 years old. I should have known better. She's your sister, Jenna said. You trusted her. She stole almost $11,000 from me while planning a fake wedding, and I collapsed 3 weeks later. Samuel, who'd been sitting silently in the corner during the entire investigation, finally spoke. Nina, can I say something? I nodded. Your sister knew you would collapse, Samuel said carefully. That's why she pushed for the bachelorette trip November 18th through 24th. You'd be unconscious. You couldn't question the wedding expenses. My blood ran cold. She's 33, Samuel said. She knew what she was doing. I looked at Jenna. What did Dr. Shaw want to tell us about the toxicology results? At 4:30, Dr. Shaw walked in with a file of lab reports. His face was serious. Nina, your blood work shows abnormal stimulant levels, ephedrine and caffeine at toxic levels. I blinked. I don't take supplements. I'm 34. I know better. Then someone gave them to you, Dr. Shaw said, without your knowledge. My mind flashed to the image Taylor's Daily Smoothies, October 28th through November 17th, 21 days. That's when I understood. My 33-year-old sister didn't just take my money. She tried to kill me. Dr. Shaw laid the toxicology report on my bed. The numbers didn't lie, but I didn't want to believe what they meant. I was 34 years old, a veterinarian. I'd spent a decade diagnosing poisoning in animals, accidental ingestions, toxic plants overdoses. I knew how to read blood work, how to calculate lethal doses. And I understood what these numbers meant. Someone had poisoned me. At 4:30 in the afternoon, Dr. Shaw walked me through the blood work. Normal ephedrine level is 0. Yours is 450 nanograms per milliliter. Toxic threshold is 200. Normal caffeine is 0 to 20 milligrams per liter. Yours is 180. Toxic threshold is 150. I stared at the paper. I don't use pre-workout powder. I drink coffee about 300 milligrams a day. I'm 34. I know my limits. Your caffeine levels suggest you consumed over 1,000 milligrams a day for weeks, Dr. Shaw said. Ephedrine is found in some pre-workout powders. FDA banned it in 2004, but it still circulates. Combined with high-dose caffeine hypertension, you're at higher risk at 34 than at 24. And chronic stress, this created the perfect conditions for a hemorrhagic stroke. My hands shook. Someone poisoned me. Or you consumed something without knowing what was in it, Dr. Shaw said carefully. My mind raced backward. The smoothies, Taylor's smoothies. October 28th through November 17th, 21 days. The smoothies, I said aloud. Taylor brought me smoothies every morning for 3 weeks. She's 33. She should have known better. Jenna looked up. Those green things, I saw her bring one on November 12th. You looked like you didn't want to drink it, but she stood there until you finished. I remembered. The bitter taste, the chalky aftertaste. Taylor always saying, drink it all. Within 30 minutes, I'd feel warm, jittery. My heart would race. My hands would shake. Headaches starting day 3. Heart rate 120 beats per minute, day 8. Insomnia, day 10. She said it was spinach banana almond butter. I said, but it tasted wrong. I'm 34, I should have questioned it. Samuel, sitting silently in the corner, asked quietly, did you ever see her make them? No, she brought them in a thermos already mixed, every morning at 7:15. At 5 o'clock, Jenna stood. I'm going to your apartment, right now. I handed her my keys. Kitchen, check the kitchen. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Jenna's face filled the screen. Nina, look. She turned the camera toward my kitchen counter. My blender sat there, green residue dried inside. Then she turned the camera toward my trash can. 6 empty plastic bottles. Nitro Blast Extreme Energy Pre-Workout. 6 bottles, Jenna said. She picked one up, read the label aloud. Warning, 300 milligrams caffeine per scoop. Contains ephedrine alkaloids. Do not exceed 1 scoop in 24 hours. Not recommended for individuals over 30. She held it closer. 30 servings per bottle, 6 bottles, 180 servings. I grabbed the hospital whiteboard and started calculating with my left hand. 21 smoothies. If 2 scoops per smoothie, 600 milligrams caffeine per day from smoothies alone. Plus my regular coffee, 300 milligrams. 900 milligrams total per day. Far above the toxic threshold for a 34-year-old. Nina, Jenna said, her voice cracking. These bottles are in your kitchen, all 6, empty. At 5:45, Jenna searched my trash more carefully. She pulled out a crumpled receipt and held it up to the camera. GNC, October 25th, 2024. 6 Nitro Blast Extreme Energy Pre-Workout Bottles, $31.24 each. Tax $11.31. Total $187.43. Credit card Taylor M. Harlow. Last 4 digits 8847. She bought the poison on October 25th, I whispered. She gave me the first smoothie October 28th, 3 days later. She planned it, Jenna said. Your 33-year-old sister planned to poison her 34-year-old sister. Jenna drove back to the hospital, arriving at 6:15 with the evidence bagged 6 bottles, the receipt, the blender residue sealed in a Ziploc. At 6:30, Dr. Shaw examined the bottles. This product has 300 milligrams of caffeine plus ephedrine per scoop. If she gave you 2 to 3 scoops daily for 21 days, combined with your baseline caffeine hypertension 160/100, and age 34 with high stress, this absolutely could cause a stroke. Did she know that? I asked. Anyone with basic medical knowledge or just Google would know, Dr. Shaw said. High-dose stimulants plus hypertension plus age 34 equals skyrocketing stroke risk. This is first-year medical school. Samuel spoke from the corner. She failed the vet tech exam 3 times. She studied pharmacology for years. She knew drug interactions. She knew toxic doses. She knew. I started to cry, silent tears sliding down my face. Why would she do this? I asked. I'm 34. I sent her money for 7 years. Jenna sat beside me. You said she demanded $3,900 for the bachelorette November 1st. You sent it. That left you with $4,230 in savings. So she knew you'd eventually question the fake wedding, Jenna said. She needed you incapacitated. Or worse, Samuel added quietly. I stared at him. She wanted me dead, my own sister. I'm only 34. Or unable to stop her from taking more, Samuel said. At 7 o'clock, I made my decision. I'm calling the police. Jenna hesitated. Are you sure she's your sister? She poisoned me, I said. She stole $10,900. She left me in a coma for 7 days. We're not kids anymore. We're 34 and 33. She made her choice. I turned to Rita. Can you call Detective Lynn Harper? I need to file a report. But before the detective arrived, I needed to hear the truth from Samuel. Because if Taylor was capable of this, what else had my family been hiding for 34 years? I looked at Samuel. Tell me, all of it. Why you waited? Samuel took a deep breath. It starts in 1990, the year you were born. The detective wouldn't arrive until tomorrow morning. So that night, Samuel told me the story my mother had buried for 34 years. We sat in the ICU room, me on the bed, 34 years old and fresh from a stroke. Samuel in the chair by the window, 64 years old, and my biological father, Willow, lying between us on the floor. And he started at the beginning, 34 years ago. I met your mother in June 1990. Her name was Diane Parker then. She married David Harlow in April 1991 and became Diane Harlow. She was 24. I was 26. He spoke quietly, his hands folded in his lap, his mismatched eyes, one blue, one green, fixed on mine. We met at Asheville Humane Society. She was volunteering. We bonded over a baby fox with a broken leg. I was poor, made $41,000 a year, lived in a cabin with no heat, but I loved her. The relationship lasted 8 months, June 1990 through January 1991. Her family was old money, Samuel said. Asheville Society. Her father found out about us in January, told me, "You're not good enough for my daughter." She cried, said she loved me, but she chose her family's money. In February 1991, Vivian discovered she was pregnant. In April, she married David Harlow, a 31-year-old accountant with a steady income and no scandalous past. I thought she'd moved on, Samuel said. I was heartbroken, but I accepted it. On November 18, 1990, Nina was born. Samuel didn't know. 2.5 years later, summer 1993, I saw her at Whole Foods. She was pushing a stroller. Samuel leaned forward slightly. I walked closer, saw the baby. You were 2.5 years old, and you had my eyes. My breath caught. One blue, one green, Samuel said. Same pattern, blue left, green right. You were so tiny, but those eyes, I knew. That's when you knew, I whispered. Heterochromia is 1 in 500 people, Samuel said. My father had it. I have it. The exact same pattern is even rarer. Seeing you, I knew for certain. He'd confronted Vivian in the parking lot. Is she mine? Vivian had panicked. No, she's David's. Leave us alone. But the timeline matched perfectly. If she'd been pregnant when they broke up in January 1991 and Nina was born November 1999, months lined up exactly. Samuel hired a private investigator in August 1993. $3,000. The PI confirmed Nina's birth date, but couldn't force a paternity test without consent. You were born almost exactly 9 months after we broke up, Samuel said. I knew you were mine, but I had no proof. 6 years later, in March 1996, Vivian called, out of nowhere. David's firm is struggling, she'd said. I need money. You're Nina's father. You owe child support. I wanted proof, Samuel said. She agreed to a paternity test. Court-ordered, Buncombe County, May 1996, 99.9% match. The judge ordered child support $3,500 per month. Samuel's financial situation at the time, he owned Fletcher Wildlife Rescue, 40 acres valued at $1.2 million. Annual income $67,000. He couldn't pay $3,500 a month from income alone. I sold the rescue. Samuel said, his voice breaking slightly. My life's work, 30 years building relationships with wounded animals, gone. He sold in August 1996 for $1.2 million. After taxes and fees, $980,000. He invested $700,000 to generate income for the support payments. I paid $3,500 a month from 1996 to 2012, Samuel said. From your 6th birthday to your 22nd, 16 years, total $672,000. I did the math in my head. Samuel was 32 when the payment started, 48 when they ended. I turned 6 when it started, 22 when it ended. Every check I sent felt like hugging you from a distance, Samuel said. I never got to hold you, but I could keep you safe. The court order had one clause. Samuel continued. No contact with Nina without Vivian's consent. She never consented. In 2012, the support ended. I turned 22. Samuel moved back to Asheville, took a part-time job at the Humane Society. In 2010, I'd volunteered there. Summer between college semesters. I was 20. You were so passionate, Samuel said. I watched you tube feed a baby squirrel. You had a gift. He'd called himself Dr. Rob. I never connected the dots. In 2011, Samuel created the Kendrick Foundation Trust with the $400,000 left from his investments. He designed the scholarship specifically for my profile. I funded your entire education, Samuel said. $12,000 a year for 4 years, $48,000 total, anonymously. You were 21 to 25. I was 47 to 51, watching you become the woman I always knew you'd become. In 2017, Samuel heard Blue Ridge Animal Hospital was hiring. He wrote me a recommendation letter. Dr. Morrison hired me based on that letter. I couldn't be your father publicly, Samuel said, but I could open doors for you. From 2017 to 2024, Samuel followed my career through LinkedIn and hospital newsletters. He noticed my Venmo transactions public posts showing money sent home, $75,000 from age 27 to 34. I wanted to help, Samuel said, but I had no legal right. You were an adult. Vivian had hidden the truth for 27 years by then. On November 17, 2024, Samuel saw me on the news. 34-year-old veterinarian rescues 47 animals from wildfire. I thought, that's my daughter. Samuel said, his voice thick. 34 years old, the same age I was when I lost her mother. At 11:30 that night, a former colleague from the Humane Society called. Nina Harlow collapsed. Stroke. Family's not here. Samuel drove to the hospital. Midnight. He looked through the glass door of ICU room 318 and saw me unconscious, 34 years old, and he couldn't leave. I'm 64 now, Samuel said. I've waited 34 years, half my life. For 7 nights, he sat outside my door, read aloud, brought Willow. On November 23rd, he paid my hospital bill $127,000 through the Kendrick Foundation. I wasn't there for your first steps, Samuel said, tears streaming down his face. Your first day of school, your graduation. 34 years I've missed you, but I could be here now. I reached for his hand, my right hand still weak from the stroke, but it held his. You've been my father my whole life, I said through tears. I just didn't know it for 34 years. Willow lifted her head and rested it on my bed. Does my mother know you're here? I asked. I don't care anymore, Samuel said. I'm tired of hiding after 34 years. At 10 o'clock, my phone buzzed. A text from Diane. We'll be back tomorrow. We need to talk. Samuel squeezed my hand. Whatever happens tomorrow, I'm not leaving. Not after 34 years. Good, I said, because I need you for what's coming. Detective Lynn Harper arrived at 8 o'clock in the morning with a notebook, a recorder, and 16 years of experience in fraud cases. She was 41. I was 34. Taylor was 33. She was about to turn my sister's lies into criminal charges. We sat in the ICU conference room, me, Jenna, Dr. Shaw, Samuel in the corner, and Detective Harper across the table with her recorder between us. Dr. Harlow, Harper said, clicking the recorder on. Walk me through the timeline. You're 34. Your sister's 33. How long has this been going on? I took a breath. 7 years of financial exploitation. $75,400 sent from age 27 to 34. Then 3 weeks of daily smoothies, October 28th through November 17th. I collapsed November 17th at 11:43 p.m. I was 34, Harper wrote in her notebook. And you believe the smoothies caused your stroke. The toxicology confirms it, I said. Ephedrine and caffeine, toxic levels. Do you believe your 33-year-old sister intentionally poisoned you? I met her eyes. Yes, I'm 34. I'm a veterinarian. I understand pharmacology. This was calculated. What was her motive? Money, I said. I'd started questioning the wedding expenses. She needed me unable to stop her. At 8:30, Harper examined the evidence Jenna had collected. 6 empty nitroblast bottles, serial numbers photographed. The GNC receipt. $187.43, October 25th. Taylor's credit card ending in 8847. Blender residue sealed in a bag already sent to the forensics lab. Harper spread out the bank statements. $75,400 over 7 years, age 27 to 34. Yes, I said. She pulled up the Venmo screenshots on her tablet. Fake engagement party, $2,800, September 14th. Yes. Wire transfer to Charleston Events LLC, $4,200, November 2nd, your sister's shell company. Yes. Harper looked up. This is wire fraud, theft by deception, and reckless endangerment. Possibly attempted manslaughter. At 9 o'clock, Dr. Shaw provided his testimony. Nina Harlow, age 34, presented with hemorrhagic stroke caused by toxic levels of ephedrine and caffeine, he said. 450 nanograms per milliliter ephedrine, more than twice the toxic threshold. 180 milligrams per liter caffeine, above toxic threshold. Combined with hypertension and chronic stress, this created the conditions for a stroke in a 34-year-old. Harper leaned forward. Could this have been accidental? No, Dr. Shaw said firmly. The dosage, duration, and delivery method, daily smoothies over 21 days, indicate deliberate administration. Anyone with basic medical knowledge would know this combination could cause stroke in someone her age. At 9:30, Harper pulled out a printout. We subpoenaed your sister's phone records, Google searches from October 20th through November 17th. She read from the list. October 20th, can too much caffeine cause stroke? October 22nd, ephedrine side effects over 30. October 25th, the day she bought the powder, how much pre-workout powder is dangerous? My chest tightened. November 1st, power of attorney forms North Carolina. November 5th, change life insurance beneficiary without consent. November 10th, stroke survival rate age 34. November 15th, how long does stroke coma last? Harper looked up. November 17th, the day you collapsed. When can I access insurance payout? I couldn't breathe. She was planning it from the beginning. She's 33 years old. She knew exactly what she was doing. At 10 o'clock, Harper pulled out 2 more documents. Power of attorney, she said, sliding the first across the table. Dated November 18th, the day you went into a coma. Your signature is forged. Notarized by Linda Chen, who doesn't exist in the North Carolina notary database. I stared at my forged signature. It was close, but not mine. Harper slid over the second document. Life insurance beneficiary change. Submitted November 20th, day 3 of your coma. Your original beneficiary, American Red Cross. Changed to Taylor M. Harlow. Policy value $500,000. The room tilted. $500,000. Your employer provides life insurance, Harper said. Standard policy, 2 times annual salary. You make $68,000 a year at Blue Ridge Animal Hospital. The policy is worth $500,000. I looked at the forged signature again. At the date November 20th. I'd been unconscious, on a ventilator, and my sister had submitted paperwork to make herself my beneficiary. She tried to kill me for $500,000, I whispered. My own sister. I'm 34. She's 33. We're not kids. Harper closed her notebook. I'm preparing an arrest warrant for wire fraud, theft by deception, forgery, reckless endangerment, and attempted voluntary manslaughter. Manslaughter, I said. Voluntary manslaughter is intentionally causing serious bodily harm that could result in death, Harper said. Your sister deliberately administered toxic doses of stimulants over 21 days, knowing they could cause a stroke in a 34-year-old woman. She forged documents to steal your insurance payout. She planned this. The Google searches prove premeditation. I nodded slowly. When does your family return from Charleston? Harper asked. Today, I said. My mother texted last night. They're coming back. Harper stood. Good, we'll be waiting. She looked at Samuel, who'd been silent through the entire interview. Mr. Fletcher, you'll need to give a statement, too, about the hospital bill payment and your relationship to Nina. Samuel nodded. I'll tell you everything. Harper turned back to me. Dr. Harlow, your sister, will be arrested when she returns. This is going to be difficult. Your family will be angry. But you did the right thing. I looked at the forged POA, at the insurance document, at the Google searches that proved my sister had spent 3 weeks planning my death. She's 33, I said. She made her choice. Harper packed up her evidence. We'll be in touch. Stay here. Stay safe. After she left, Samuel took my hand. You're brave. 34 years old and braver than most people twice your age. I'm just tired, I said. Tired of being used. Tired of being lied to. Jenna squeezed my other hand. Your family's coming back today. Are you ready? I looked at Samuel, at Jenna, at the empty chair where Detective Harper had sat. Nowhere, I said. But I don't have a choice. My phone buzzed. A text from Diane. We're leaving Charleston now. Be there by noon. Samuel squeezed my hand tighter. I'll be here, right beside you. Good, I said, because I'm going to need you. They arrived at 11:30, exactly 29 hours after I'd woken up. Diane came through the door, first her face lighting up when she saw me awake. Oh, thank God you're okay. I looked at her. I woke up 2 days ago. I'm 34. I've been awake for 48 hours. She stopped. I came as soon as I heard, I woke up November 25th. I said, It's November 26th. You're 24 hours late. Taylor entered behind her defensive before anyone accused her of anything. We were in Charleston. We couldn't just leave. You abandoned me the day I collapsed, I said. You stayed in Charleston for 7 days. I'm your 34-year-old daughter. You made your choice. David came in last. 60 years old, gray hair, shoulders stooped. He stood near the door eyes, avoiding mine. You all left me, I said. 7 days. I'm 34. You're 60, Dad. You made your choice. Diane moved toward my bed. Then she saw Samuel sitting in the chair by the window. She froze. What is he doing here? David looked up, saw Samuel confusion crossing his face. His name is Samuel Fletcher, I said. He's been here every night for 7 days. Diane went pale. Nina, he shouldn't be here. Samuel stood. I have every right. I'm her father. Silence. David stared at Samuel. What, I'm her father? Samuel looked at David calmly. You raised her. You're her father in every way that matters. But biologically, I'm her father. David staggered backward, grabbed the chair, sat heavily. What? I'm Samuel Fletcher, 64 years old. In 1996, a paternity test confirmed I'm Nina's biological father. 99.9% match. I paid $672,000 in child support over 16 years. David turned to Diane, his voice shaking. Is this true? Diane covered her mouth with her hand. Tears streamed down her face. She didn't speak. David stood back toward the door. Diane, we've been married 33 years. You told me Nina was mine. She hid this for 34 years, I said. Hid it from both of us. David looked at me. You didn't know either. I found out 2 days ago, I said. When I was 34. The exact number of years this lie existed. David turned back to Diane, his voice rising. You lied to me for 33 years of marriage? I was going to tell you, Diane sobbed. When David shouted, when I'm 70, 80 on my deathbed. I just wanted to protect Nina. You wanted to protect yourself, I said. David looked at me, his eyes red. I raised you. I thought you were mine. Every birthday, every Christmas, every parent-teacher conference. Tears fell down my face. You were my father. You still are. DNA doesn't change that you raised me for 34 years. But I deserve to know the truth. David said, his voice breaking. I'm 60 years old. I spent 34 years raising another man's child without even knowing. Samuel spoke quietly. You gave her a childhood. I only sent money from a distance. You're the father she knew. David looked at Samuel. Then why are you here now? Because she collapsed, Samuel said, and her family abandoned her to go to Charleston. I sat outside this ICU room for 7 nights. Someone had to stay. David looked down at the floor, shame washing over his face. I should have stayed. Your eyes, David said suddenly, looking at me. Heterochromia. I asked Diane when you were born. She said it was a recessive gene from her family. I believed her. She lied, I said. Samuel's father had it. Samuel has it. I inherited it. David turned to Diane. How could you do this to me, to her, to all of us? Diane sank into a chair. I was pregnant at 24. My family would disown me if they knew I was pregnant with Samuel's child. He was dirt poor, then just a wildlife vet. They forced me to marry you. You were stable, safe. David's face hardened. Safe, that's all I was, a safe backup plan. And the way you looked at me. David said to me, his voice soft now, like you were waiting for me to love you the way I loved Taylor. I thought it was because you were more independent. I didn't know it was because some part of you sensed it. I didn't know, I said, but I felt it. For 34 years, I always felt different. Taylor, who'd been silent through all of this, shifted uncomfortably near the door. David turned to her. Did you know? No, Taylor said quickly. I didn't know. At that moment, Detective Lynn Harper appeared in the doorway. Sorry to interrupt, she said. I'm Detective Lynn Harper, Asheville Police Department. Taylor went rigid. Why is there police here? Harper looked directly at Taylor. I need to ask Taylor Harlow, 33 years old, some questions regarding fraud and reckless endangerment against her 34-year-old sister. David's head snapped up. What fraud? Taylor turned to me, her eyes wide. What did you do? I told the truth, I said. Something our family hasn't done for 34 years. David looked at Taylor. What did you do? Taylor opened her mouth, closed it, said nothing. Harper stepped further into the room. Ms. Harlow, I have evidence that you— Evidence of what? Diane interrupted, standing. My daughter hasn't done anything wrong. Your 33-year-old daughter, Harper said carefully, has done quite a bit wrong, and your 34-year-old daughter has the proof. David looked at me. Nina, what's going on? I met his eyes. Taylor stole almost $11,000 from me through a fake wedding. She poisoned me for 3 weeks with toxic doses of caffeine and ephedrine. She forged my signature on legal documents while I was in a coma, and she tried to change my life insurance beneficiary to herself $500,000. The room went silent. David turned slowly to Taylor. Tell me that's not true. Taylor's face crumpled. I can explain. Is it true? David's voice was steel. Taylor looked at Diane, at me, at David. Then she looked down. Some of it, she whispered. David closed his eyes. Oh my God. Harper pulled out a folder. Mr. Harlow, I need to show you something. What came next would break what was left of our family. But after 34 years of lies, maybe it needed to break before it could ever be whole again. The interrogation room wasn't really a room, just a corner of the ICU nurse's station, with a borrowed desk and 2 folding chairs. Detective Lynn Harper sat across from Taylor, a digital recorder between them. Detective Mike Torres stood by the wall, arms crossed. I watched from my hospital bed through the open door, flanked by Samuel on one side and Jenna on the other. David stood near the foot of my bed, still pale from Samuel's revelation an hour earlier. Diane sat in the corner, staring at her phone. Harper opened a manila folder. Taylor Marie Harlow, age 33, veterinary technician, sister of the victim. She looked up. Let's start with your Google search history. Taylor's hands tightened on the armrests. Harper read from a printed page. October 20th, 11:42 p.m. Can too much caffeine cause a stroke? October 23rd. Ephedrine side effects over 30. October 27th. How much pre-workout powder is dangerous? She paused. November 2nd. Power of attorney forms North Carolina. David's voice cut in from behind me. You searched how to change insurance beneficiaries without consent. Taylor didn't look at him. Harper continued. November 10th, stroke survival rate age 34. November 14th. How long does stroke coma last? November 17th, the day your sister collapsed. When can I access insurance payout? The room went silent. Harper slid a document across the table. This is a power of attorney form dated November 18th, the day after Nina's collapse. It bears her signature and is notarized by Linda Chen of Raleigh. She looked at Taylor. Linda Chen doesn't exist. The notary seal is fake. David stepped forward. You forged her signature while she was in a coma. Taylor's jaw trembled. Harper placed a second document on the table. This is a beneficiary change form for Nina's life insurance policy. Original beneficiary, American Red Cross. New beneficiary as of November 20th, Taylor Marie Harlow. Policy value $500,000. I felt the air leave my lungs. Harper leaned forward. You tried to steal your sister's life insurance while she was dying. Taylor's face crumbled. The engagement wasn't real, she whispered. Evan and I broke up in July. I needed the money for the wedding deposits. David's voice rose. I've been sending you $4,000 every month since 2020. Where did that money go? Taylor looked at Diane. Mom needed... Don't. Diane's voice was sharp, but Harper was already reading her notes. Bank records show Diane Harlow withdrew $30,000 from Taylor's account between August and October 2024. Purchases include Louis Vuitton handbags, spa packages, and a weekend trip to Miami. David turned to Diane, his face white. You stole from our daughter. Diane said nothing. Harper refocused on Taylor. Let's talk about the smoothies. Taylor's shoulders sagged. You purchased 6 bottles of Nitro Blast Extreme pre-workout powder on October 25th. $187.43 paid with your credit card ending in 8847. Harper slid the GNC receipt across the table. Each bottle contains 30 servings, each serving 300 milligrams of caffeine plus ephedrine. The label warns, do not exceed 1 scoop per 24 hours. Not recommended for individuals over 30. I remembered the taste, bitter metallic burning. Harper's voice was relentless. You gave your sister 2 to 3 scoops per day for 21 days. That's 600 to 900 milligrams of caffeine daily, plus ephedrine, plus her regular coffee, for a 34-year-old woman with untreated hypertension. I didn't know she had high blood pressure. You're a veterinary technician, Samuel said quietly from beside me. You've taken pharmacology courses. You knew. Taylor's face twisted. I failed, she said, voice breaking. I failed the certification exam 3 times. 2020, 2020, 2022. I couldn't tell anyone. David's voice cracked. I paid for those exams 3 times. You told me you passed. I lied. Taylor looked at me, tears streaming. You were 28 when you got hired. I was 27. You had everything, the degree, the job, the respect. I had nothing. Dad kept asking when I'd get certified, and Mom kept comparing me to you, and She choked. I just wanted what you had. Nina's voice was cold. So you tried to kill me? No. Taylor's hands flew up. I only wanted to make you sick. Sick enough that you'd need me, that you'd have to slow down, that maybe people would stop seeing you as perfect. Harper's voice cut through. The toxicology report shows ephedrine at 450 nanograms per milliliter. Toxic level is 200. Caffeine at 180 milligrams per liter. Toxic level is 150. She closed the folder. You didn't want to make her sick. You wanted to kill her. That's not true. Samuel's voice was quiet but firm. 450 nanograms per milliliter of ephedrine is a lethal dose for someone with hypertension. You have a veterinary pharmacology background. You knew exactly what you were doing. David's voice shook. Samuel paid $672,000 in child support over 16 years to help raise you and your sister. You repaid Nina by poisoning her. Taylor buried her face in her hands. Harper stood. Taylor Marie Harlow. You're under arrest for wire fraud, theft by deception, forgery, reckless endangerment, and attempted voluntary manslaughter. She nodded to Torres, who stepped forward with handcuffs. Taylor looked at me one last time. I'm sorry, she whispered. But I couldn't speak. I watched my sister, my 33-year-old sister, who used to braid my hair and sing me to sleep, being led away in handcuffs. David sank into a chair, head in his hands, and I realized the person I'd thought I knew had never really existed at all. Before I tell you about the inheritance trap that nearly killed me, the real motive behind 34 years of lies, comment the word betrayal below, so I know you're here for the truth. What's coming next will shock you, and fair warning, parts of this story contain fictional elements. If that's not your thing, feel free to leave now. The interrogation room felt smaller now. Taylor was gone, led away in handcuffs, but Diane remained. She sat in the folding chair across from Detective Harper, hands trembling in her lap. I watched from my hospital bed, Samuel on one side, Jenna on the other. David stood at the foot of my bed, arms crossed, jaw tight. Harper opened a new folder. Mrs. Harlow, I need to ask you about your knowledge of certain financial arrangements. Diane's eyes darted to the door as if calculating escape. Samuel spoke quietly. I think it's time Nina knew about the trust. My head turned. What trust? Samuel met my gaze. In 2018, after you were hired at the veterinary hospital, I established a trust fund through the Kendrick Foundation. $400,000. You were named the primary beneficiary. He paused. Taylor was named the contingent beneficiary if you died before your 35th birthday. The room tilted. Harper pulled out a document. The trust was set up on March 2, 2018. Nina Harlow, primary beneficiary, receives full distribution on February 14, 2025, her 35th birthday. She looked at me. That's 79 days from now. David's voice was tight. If Nina had died before February 14th, Taylor would have inherited $400,000. Correct, Samuel said. Harper turned to Diane. Did you know about this trust? Diane's silence was answer enough. Mrs. Harlow, Samuel told me, Diane whispered. In 2018, he said it was Nina's future security. David stepped forward. You knew about a $400,000 trust fund for 6 years, and you said nothing. He asked me not to tell Nina until she turned 35. That's not what I asked. David's voice was steel. You knew, and you never told me, or Nina. Samuel's voice was calm. I told Diane as a courtesy because Nina is her daughter. I didn't expect her to weaponize the information. Harper laid out a timeline on the desk. Taylor learned about the trust sometime between 2018 and October 2024. On October 25th, she purchased the pre-workout powder. October 28th, she started the smoothies. November 17th, Nina collapsed exactly 3 months before her 35th birthday. David's face went pale. She planned this for 6 years, or at least several months, Harper said. The poisoning window was 21 days. If Nina had died, Taylor would have inherited $400,000 plus the $500,000 life insurance she tried to claim fraudulently, plus the $10,900 she'd already stolen through fake wedding expenses. She closed the folder. Total motive $910,900. I couldn't breathe. David's voice shook. She tried to kill her sister for money. Samuel looked at me, and she almost succeeded. Harper turned back to Diane. Mrs. Harlow, there's one more thing. She pulled out a printed bank statement. Between June 2013 and October 2024, you made irregular payments to Taylor Harlow totaling $64,500. Care to explain? Diane's face crumbled. Samuel's voice was quiet, almost sad. Taylor, when did you find out I was Nina's father? Harper glanced at her notes from Taylor's earlier interrogation. Ms. Harlow stated, quote, June 2013, I was 22. I found my mother's files. Samuel nodded slowly. And you blackmailed your own mother for 11 years. Diane gasped. You promised you'd never tell anyone. Harper read from the transcript. Ms. Harlow's response, I kept your secret, but it had to cost something. Samuel looked at Diane. How much? Diane's voice broke. Over 11 years, about $64,500. David stood abruptly, his chair scraping the floor. His face was red veins visible at his temples. You paid her $64,500 with my money. Diane flinched. I had no choice. No choice. David's voice rose. I've given you $4,000 a month for 33 years. That's $1.6 million over this marriage. And you secretly paid Taylor $64,500 just to hide that Nina isn't my biological child. David, please. David turned to Harper, his voice shaking with fury. Detective, for the record, Taylor blackmailed her mother for 11 years, from age 22 to 33. She was an adult. She knew exactly what she was doing. He turned back to Diane. "And you paid her, with my money, to cover up your affair." Diane sobbed into her hands. I found my voice. "Mom, did you know about the smoothies?" Diane looked up, mascara streaking her face. "No, I swear." "Did you know about the fake engagement?" Diane hesitated. I suspected something." "You suspected." My voice was flat. "You suspected your daughter was scamming me and you said nothing." "I didn't know. You let her steal from me for 7 years." Diane opened her mouth, but no words came. David's voice cut through the silence. It was cold, deliberate, final. "I'm filing for divorce. 33 years of marriage. Built on a lie." Diane's head snapped up. "David, please. You lied about Nina's paternity. You used my money to pay off Taylor's blackmail. You enabled the fraud." He looked at her, and I saw something break in his eyes. "I'm 60 years old. I won't spend my remaining years with a liar." Diane stood reaching for him. "David." But he stepped back. He turned to me, and his voice softened. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. I should have seen this. I should have protected you." "Dad." But he was already walking toward the door. "David," Diane's voice was desperate. "David, wait." He didn't look back. The door closed behind him. Diane collapsed into the chair, sobbing. Samuel's hand rested gently on my shoulder. Harper gathered her files. Jenna squeezed my hand. And I realized that in the span of 48 hours, I'd lost my sister, my mother, and the man who'd raised me, the only father I'd ever known. Samuel stood beside me, a stranger with my eyes, and I didn't know which loss hurt more. The courtroom was silent. Judge Patricia Winters sat behind the bench, 60 years of justice etched into the lines of her face. It was January 15th, 2025, exactly 7 weeks after my collapse. I sat in the front row between Samuel and Jenna. The gallery was half empty. David wasn't there. He'd moved to Charlotte 3 weeks ago, right after the divorce was finalized. Taylor stood at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed in front of her. Her lawyer stood beside her, stone-faced. Judge Winters adjusted her glasses. "Taylor Marie Harlow, the jury has found you guilty on all counts: attempted voluntary manslaughter, wire fraud, forgery, reckless endangerment, and extortion." She paused. "This court has reviewed the evidence. The toxicology reports, the forged documents, the 11 years of blackmail, the systematic poisoning of your own sister." Taylor's face was blank. "The court sentences you to 11 years for attempted voluntary manslaughter, 5 years for wire fraud to run concurrently, 3 years for forgery to run concurrently, 2 years for reckless endangerment to run concurrently, and 4 years for extortion to run consecutively." Judge Winters looked directly at Taylor. "Total sentence 15 years in the North Carolina Correctional Institution for Women. Eligible for parole after 60% served 9 years. Restitution to the victim, $75,900, covering the $10,900 in fraud, the $64,500 in blackmail funds, and $500 in court costs." Taylor didn't flinch. "Do you have anything to say to the court?" Taylor's lawyer whispered something. Taylor shook her head. Judge Winters' voice hardened. "You poisoned your sister for money. You blackmailed your mother for 11 years. You forged legal documents while she lay dying. You showed no remorse during this trial." She lifted her gavel. "This court finds your conduct reprehensible. Bailiff, remove the defendant." 2 officers led Taylor toward the door. She glanced at me once, no apology, no tears. Just a look that said she'd do it all again if she could. Then she was gone. Judge Winters turned to the second defendant, Diane Parker Harlow. My mother stood at the adjacent table, 58 years old and suddenly small. Her lawyer stood beside her. "Mrs. Harlow, you have pleaded guilty to accessory after the fact and obstruction of justice. While you did not directly participate in the poisoning, you concealed your daughter's fraud, enabled her blackmail, and failed to protect the victim, your other daughter." Judge Winters frowned. "This court sentences you to 18 months probation, a $5,000 fine, and 200 hours of community service. You will report to a probation officer weekly and are prohibited from contacting the victim without her written consent." Diane nodded, tears streaming. Your divorce was finalized January 8th. North Carolina requires a 1-year separation, but David filed on grounds of fraud and marital misconduct, your mother's concealment of paternity, and financial crimes. The judge granted an expedited hearing. The divorce was finalized on January 8th due to extraordinary circumstances. You have forfeited approximately $400,000 in marital assets as part of the settlement. This court hopes you understand the gravity of your actions. Judge Winters closed the file. You enabled your daughter's crimes for over a decade. You used your ex-husband's money to pay blackmail. You stood by while your other daughter was poisoned. That is a failure of the most fundamental kind. Diane whispered, "I'm sorry," but she didn't look at me. Judge Winters set down her gavel. The victim may now read her impact statement. I stood hands shaking and walked to the podium. My name is Nina Harlow. I'm 34 years old. I'm a licensed veterinarian. On November 17, 2024, I collapsed from a stroke caused by deliberate poisoning. I was in a coma for 7 days. I woke up to discover that my 33-year-old sister had tried to kill me for a $400,000 inheritance and a $500,000 insurance payout. I discovered that my 58-year-old mother had enabled fraud and blackmail for over a decade. I looked at the empty defense table where Taylor had stood. I lost my family, but I gained something too. I learned that my biological father, Samuel Fletcher, paid $672,000 in child support over 16 years to help raise me. I learned that the man who raised me, David Harlow, loved me for 34 years, even though I wasn't biologically his. I learned that love isn't about DNA. It's about showing up. My voice steadied. Taylor showed up to poison me. Diane showed up to cover for her. But David showed up to teach me to ride a bike when I was 6, to help me study biology when I was 16, to support my dream of becoming a veterinarian. And Samuel showed up every night for 7 nights while I was in a coma, reading to me through a glass wall. I folded the paper. Justice has been served today, and I'm grateful, but I'll carry the scars of this betrayal for the rest of my life. I sat down. Judge Winters nodded. Thank you, Ms. Harlow. Court is adjourned. Flashback, November 26, 2024, 8:00 p.m. ICU, room 318. I was alone when David came back. He knocked softly on the doorframe, even though the door was open. He looked older than I'd ever seen him, 60 years old, shoulders bent, eyes red. Nina, his voice broke. I need you to know I didn't know anything about Samuel, about any of this. I know, Dad. I reached for his hand. You're 60 years old. You've been lied to for 33 years of marriage. He sat in the chair beside my bed. For 34 years, I thought you were mine. I taught you to ride a bike when you were 6. I helped you study biology when you were 16. I walked you through your first dissection when you were 20. His tears fell onto our joined hands. You are my daughter. DNA doesn't change the fact that I raised you for 34 years. I was crying too. You've been more of a father than anyone. You were always there. You always cared. For 34 years, you were my only father. But I didn't protect you from them, from Diane's lies, from Taylor's greed. I'm 60 years old. I should have known. You didn't know because they hid it from you too. I should have seen what Taylor was doing. The demands for money, the fake engagement. I'm her father. I raised her for 33 years. I failed. You didn't fail me. He pulled an envelope from his coat. I'm filing for divorce. I'm moving to Charlotte to be near your aunt. But I want you to know you'll always be my daughter. I'm 60. You're 34. We have decades ahead. I opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter and a check for $15,000. The memo line read, to replace what Taylor took and what I couldn't stop. Dad, you don't have to do this. I need to. I'm 60 years old. I've worked my whole life. I can afford it, and you deserve it. I stood legs still, shaky, and he stood too. We hugged, a real hug, the first in years. When he pulled away, his voice was steady. Call me any time. I love you, Nina. You'll always be my daughter, the one I raised. Then he walked out, and I watched him go. Samuel was waiting on the courthouse steps when I came out. Jenna stood beside him, hands in her coat pockets. How are you holding up? Samuel asked. I don't know, I said honestly. He nodded. Would you like to get dinner sometime this week? No pressure, just time. I thought of David, 60 years old in Charlotte, starting over. I thought of my mother, 58 and alone. I thought of my sister, 33 and locked away for 15 years. And I thought of Samuel, 64 years old, standing on courthouse steps, offering me the one thing I needed most. Time. Yes, I said, I'd like that. My phone buzzed, a text from David. I'm proud of you. I looked at Samuel, then at Jenna, then at the courthouse behind us. I'd lost my mother, I'd lost my sister, but I'd gained a father I never knew, and I'd kept the father who raised me. Justice had been served. Now it was time to heal. I walked out of the hospital on February 1st, 2025, 10 weeks after my collapse. My right hand still trembled when I tried to hold a pen. My right leg dragged slightly when I was tired, but I was alive. Samuel texted that afternoon, dinner this week. I stared at the message for 5 minutes before typing back, okay. We met at a Mexican restaurant on February 3rd. Samuel was already there when I arrived, sitting in a booth by the window, hands folded on the table. Mexican food, I said as I slid into the seat. How did you know? He smiled. You used to go to that taco truck on Lexington Avenue every Tuesday when you were in vet school. I noticed. 14 years of watching from a distance. We ordered. The conversation was awkward at first, small talk about the weather, about my physical therapy sessions, about his clinic. Then Samuel asked, why did you become a veterinarian? I thought about it, because animals don't lie, they don't pretend. If they're hurt, they show you. If they love you, they show you. There's no performance. He nodded. Your mother sent me a restraining order in 1997. I could watch you from a distance, but I couldn't contact you until you turned 18. By then you had a life. I didn't want to disrupt it. I set down my fork. You paid $672,000 in child support. You created a $48,000 scholarship. You paid my $127,000 hospital bill. You did more than most fathers who live with their kids. His eyes, blue on the left, green on the right, just like mine, filled with tears. I reached across the table and held his hand. We have time now. A week later, Samuel invited me to his clinic. Fletcher Animal Hospital. Small, clean, with a waiting room full of pet owners and a bulletin board covered in thank you cards. He led me to his office. The walls were covered in newspaper clippings. Local high school student wins regional science fair. Nina Harlow, 16, 2006. Asheville Veterinary College graduates class of 2015. My face circled in red pen. New veterinarian joins Asheville Animal Clinic, 2017. Dr. Nina Harlow nominated for Veterinarian of the Year, 2023. I stood in the center of the room, surrounded by my entire life. You were there, I whispered. I couldn't be there in person, Samuel said quietly, but I wanted to know you were okay. I turned to him. You were there, just not in the way I expected. On February 14th, my 35th birthday, Samuel arrived at my apartment with Willow and an envelope. Inside were legal documents. Kendrick Foundation Trust. Established June 2013, when I turned 23, right after I graduated vet school. Original deposit $250,000 from the sale of Fletcher Wildlife Rescue in 1996. Invested in index funds for 12 years. Current value, February 14th, 2025, $400,000. I looked up at Samuel. I can't. You already earned it. His voice was steady. Your grandmother would be proud. Margaret Kendrick Fletcher, she passed in 2022 at 91. I named the trust after her. This is for you, for your future, for the clinic you've always wanted to open. I can't accept this. You can? He stepped closer. I should have been there for your first day of school, your first bike ride, your high school graduation. I can't give you the past, but I can give you the future. I hugged him, a real hug, the first one. Thank you, I whispered. Dad. It was the first time I'd called him that. December 2nd, 2024. A letter had arrived 3 months earlier while I was still in rehab. A plain blue envelope, David's handwriting. I opened the card, Hallmark, simple design, front to my daughter. Inside, in David's handwriting, Nina, You will always be my daughter. DNA doesn't change 34 years of love. I'm sorry I didn't protect you from this. I hope you can forgive me for not recognizing it sooner. I'm moving to Charlotte. If you need anything, advice, money, or just someone to talk to, call me. I love you. You've made me proud every day. Dad! Attached was a photo of me at 8 years old David teaching me to ride a bike. I cried. The first real tears since Taylor's arrest, not from anger, but from grief. Samuel had been there that day. He placed a hand on my shoulder. He loves you, Samuel said quietly. He always has. I know. My voice broke. But I feel like I still lost him. You didn't lose him. He's choosing you over Diane. He's 60 years old. He could have stayed in that marriage. But he chose the truth. He chose you. I called David that night. The call lasted 45 minutes. We talked about the past, the future, the 34 years. David promised to visit at Christmas. I promised to introduce him to Samuel properly. David said, "You can have 2 fathers. I raised you. He gave you life. There's room for both of us." March 15th, 2025. By mid-March, Samuel and I had dinner every Tuesday. He told me stories watching me volunteer at the Asheville Humane Society in 2010, sitting in the back row at my vet school graduation in 2015, sitting in his car outside my clinic on my first day in 2017. "You gave up everything for me," I said one night. "I didn't give up anything," he smiled. "I invested in you, and you turned out better than I ever dreamed." On April 10th, I invited Samuel to my clinic. I introduced him to my colleagues. "This is Samuel Fletcher, my biological father." Jenna hugged him. "Thank you for the 7 nights. You sat outside that glass when no one else did." Samuel looked at me. "She's my daughter. Where else would I be?" For the first time, I felt pride instead of shame. On April 30th, Samuel and I drove to Charlotte. David met us at a coffee shop. 60 years old gray at the temples, still standing tall. Samuel extended his hand. "David Harlow." David shook it. "Samuel Fletcher." They stood there for a moment, 2 men 30 years apart in age, both fathers to the same daughter. David said, "You paid for her when I didn't know she needed it. Thank you." Samuel said, "You raised her when I couldn't be there. Thank you." I watched them shake hands, and I realized I didn't lose my family. I chose a new one. Let me take you back to December 20th, 2024, 1 month after my collapse, 7 weeks before the trial that would send Taylor to prison. That was the day Samuel and I reopened Fletcher Wildlife Rescue. I stood in front of a freshly painted sign, Fletcher Wildlife Rescue established 2024. Behind me, a renovated barn, 6 raptor enclosures, and the father I'd spent 34 years not knowing existed. I was 34 years old. He was 64. And today, we were reopening. Together. 34 years of waiting. 34 years of hiding. Finally over. December 20th, 2024, 8 a.m. The volunteers arrived at dawn. Jenna drove up, first followed by Dr. Morrison in his pickup truck, then a caravan of cars from the Asheville Humane Society and the local Wildlife Rehabilitation Network. 40 acres. Red barn, new roof. 6 flight enclosures for raptors, a small mammal ward, a surgical suite with donated equipment from Blue Ridge Veterinary Hospital, 2 weeks of renovation, hundreds of volunteer hours, and now a ribbon stretched across the barn doors. Samuel handed me the scissors. Willow sat at his feet, 14 years old, tail wagging slowly. Local news cameras rolled. WLOS News 13. Stroke survivor, 34, reopens wildlife rescue with biological father. I cut the ribbon. Applause erupted. Samuel leaned close. "Your grandmother would be proud. Margaret Kendrick Fletcher, she passed in 2022 at 91. She never got to meet you. But this is her legacy too. 34 years late, but it's here." I whispered, "I wish I'd known her." Samuel's voice was quiet. "She knew about you. I told her the day you were born. She kept the secret for 34 years, but she left money in her will, $180,000. For Nina," she wrote, "when Samuel finally finds her. She died at 91. You were 32. She waited for this. 8:30 a.m. The first patient arrived, a red-tailed hawk with a shattered left wing hit by a car on I-40. I examined it while Samuel assisted. Compound fracture of the ulna. Prognosis 6 to 8 weeks recovery, 90% chance of release. My hand steady now, 1 month post-stroke, splinted the wing. She'll fly again, I said. Like me. We both get a second chance. Samuel smiled. They always do. That's why we do this work. I did this for 30 years before you were born. Now I get to do it with you. By 10 a.m., we'd admitted an orphaned raccoon kit found near a dumpster, a box turtle with a cracked shell from a lawnmower, a barred owl with a concussion from a window strike. Nina and Samuel worked side by side, inherited skill, a 34-year DNA bond finally expressed. A volunteer, a college student barely 20, asked me, "How did you recover so fast? You're only 34. I touched the scar at my temple. I had people who believed I was worth saving. For 34 years, someone was watching over me. I just didn't know it. Noon. Jenna arrived with sandwiches from a local deli. "How does it feel?" she asked. "You're 34. A month ago, you were in a coma." I said, "Like I'm finally where I belong. For 34 years, I felt out of place. Now I know why." Jenna said, "You recovered so fast, most stroke patients can't work after a month, especially at 34. I replied, "I had people who believed I was worth saving and a reason to fight." Jenna hesitated. "Detective Harper called this morning. Taylor took a plea deal." I asked, "How long?" She answered, 15 years eligible for parole after 7. She's 33 now. She'll be 40 when she's eligible. Sentencing is January 10th. I thought about it. 15 years, nearly half her life, nearly half the time the secret was kept. Jenna asked, "Do you feel guilty?" I said no. She made her choices for 33 years. I made mine at 34. We're both adults. 4 p.m. The last patient was stable, the raccoon kit, asleep in a heated cage. Samuel said, "Nina, walk with me." We walked to a clearing, the same place Samuel had released a bald eagle in 1994 when I was 4 years old. "I released an eagle here 30 years ago," Samuel said. "The day after I first saw you. You were 3.5. I was 33, Taylor's age now." He pulled a small wooden box from his coat pocket. "I've carried this for 34 years. Inside a hospital bracelet, pink beads reading, 'Baby Girl Harlow, November 18th, 1990. A hospital photo of newborn Nina with eyes squeezed shut, 1 day old, and a letter yellowed paper dated December 20th. 1990, exactly 34 years ago today. I wrote this letter 1 day after you were born," Samuel said. "Vivian wouldn't let me see you at the hospital. I didn't even know you existed until 1993. But I found this letter recently in an old journal. I wrote it without knowing for sure. Like I sensed something. I read hands trembling. December 20th, 1990. I am 29 years old. Vivian left me 11 months ago. I still love her. I wonder if she ever thinks of me. I wonder if there's a part of her or a part of us somewhere out there in the world. If there is, I hope they know they are loved. I hope someday I'll get to meet them. Samuel." I sobbed. "You wrote this 34 years ago today, 1 day after I was born. You didn't even know I existed." Samuel's tears fell. Some part of me always knew. I waited 34 years. Evening. On the cabin porch, hot chocolate in hand, Samuel's recipe with dark chocolate, cinnamon, and marshmallows. I asked, "Do you think about Diane? She's 58 now." Samuel said, "I think about the woman I knew in 1990. She was 24. I was 29. We were young. She was kind then." He paused. "But somewhere over 34 years, she chose comfort over truth. She's 58 now. I'm 64. We're both old enough to understand that apologies don't return 34 years. I said, "She called yesterday." I didn't answer. Samuel replied, "That's your choice. Family is an obligation, especially after 34 years of lies." I asked, "So what is family?" Samuel said, "It's showing up, even when you're not invited, even when it costs everything. For 34 years, I showed up the only ways I could, paying, watching, waiting. I thought of the 7 nights Samuel sat outside the ICU. You showed up when it mattered most. Samuel said, "I always will. I'm 64. You're 34. I probably have 30 years left. I won't waste a single day." Night. I wrote in my leather journal Jenna's gift marked "For New Beginnings." December 20th, 2024, 34 years ago today I was born. Today I reopened a wildlife rescue with my father. 1 month ago I collapsed after saving 47 animals. My family left me to die. My sister poisoned me. My mother lied for 34 years. I should have broken, but I didn't, because a stranger sat outside my ICU room for 7 nights. Because that stranger was my father, who sacrificed everything for 34 years to give me a future. Today I saved a hawk. Today I chose my family. Not the family I was born into, the family that chose me back. That's what family means after 34 years. Not blood, not obligation, but love that shows up. December 23rd, 2024. 3 days later, the hawk's wing was strong enough for a test flight. At the clearing, volunteers and local news gathered. I carried the crate. Samuel stood beside me. I opened the door. The hawk hopped onto my gloved hand, talons gripping. I raised my arm. The hawk looked at me one last moment of connection, then spread her wings. 6-foot wingspan. She lifted, circled twice overhead, then she vanished into the Blue Ridge Mountains. Applause. Samuel whispered, "That's freedom." After 34 years of waiting, I looked up at the sky, tears falling. That's us, free after 34 years. February 14th, 2026. 1 year and 3 months after the collapse. My 36th birthday. The grand opening of Fletcher Harlow Veterinary Clinic was scheduled for 10 a.m. I stood in the lobby, custom built, funded by the $400,000 Kendrick Trust, and watched volunteers hang the sign outside Fletcher Harlow Veterinary Clinic and Wildlife Rehabilitation Center. Dr. Nina Harlow, DVM. Samuel Fletcher, Wildlife Specialist. Established 2026. Samuel, now 65, adjusted his tie. Your grandmother's money, your name, our work. 35 years in the making. Jenna arrived with coffee. 36 years, technically. You're 36 today. I smiled. 36. 2 years older than I was supposed to be. The doors opened. First through Dr. Morrison carrying a potted plant. Then the Asheville Humane Society staff. Then reporters. And then David Harlow walked in. 61 years old. Gray at the temples. Still tall. He shook Samuel's hand. Samuel. Samuel replied, David. They'd met twice before, once in April 2025, once at Christmas. But today was different. Today they stood together in my clinic built with Samuel's sacrifice and David's love. David handed me an envelope. For your 36th birthday, from both of us. Inside 2 checks. One from David, $15,000 memo reading, for the girl I raised for 34 years. One from Samuel, $15,000 memo reading, for the daughter I waited 34 years to know. $30,000. 2 fathers. 1 daughter. I hugged them both. That evening back at Fletcher Wildlife Rescue, I sat on the porch with Samuel. Willow, now 15 gray-muzzled, slept at our feet. The fire crackled inside. Our heterochromatic eyes reflected the flames, blue, left green, right identical. I thought about the ICU Samuel sitting outside the glass for 7 nights, unable to come in, waiting 34 years. Now we were on the same side, together. I said quietly, family isn't who gives birth to you. It's who sits outside the glass when no one else does. And then when the door finally opens after 34 years, they walk in and stay forever. Samuel took my hand. 34 years of watching through glass. Now I get to sit beside you. I looked at the mountains, the stars, and the man who'd sacrificed everything for 34 years. We're on this side of the glass now, I whispered, together. And for the first time in 36 years, I was home. And to you listening to this story, remember this family betrayal cuts deeper than any knife. But God gives us the strength to choose our own path. For 34 years, I didn't know the truth. For 34 years, I lived a lie. But God placed people in my life, Samuel, David, Jenna, who showed me what real family looks like. I learned 3 hard lessons. First, family betrayal doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes it comes from the people who share your blood, your name, your dinner table. My sister poisoned me for money. My mother hid the truth for decades. But God saw every silent sacrifice Samuel made, every dollar David gave, every prayer I didn't know was being prayed. Second, family revenge is a trap. I could have spent my life hating Taylor, hating Diane, hating the 34 years I lost. But God taught me that revenge poisons the one who holds it, just like those smoothies poison me. Instead, I chose forgiveness. Not for them. For me. Third, family betrayal reveals who truly loves you. When I was dying in that ICU, it wasn't my mother or sister sitting outside the glass. It was a man who'd waited 34 years just to know I was alive. God's love shows up even when it's been hidden for decades. Don't be like me. Don't wait 34 years to ask the hard questions. Don't ignore the red flags because they're family. Family revenge and family betrayal are real, but so is redemption, and so is grace. If this story touched you, please leave a comment below. Have you ever experienced family betrayal? How did you heal? Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe so you don't miss the next story. Thank you for staying until the end. And a word of caution. The stories ahead contain some fictional elements created for educational purposes. If this content isn't for you, feel free to explore other videos that better suit your preferences. Take care of yourself.